There's a fire that burns inside. It's an instinct that never lies. The target's tattooed between our eyes. Stand and fight under the lights on the higher stage. A part of your life they can't take away. Just like the blood running through your veins. Everyone's watching through your eyes. There's only two options, win or die. Win or die. Win or die. It went from a spark to an open flame. Now destiny's calling out your name. So reply, so reply. Ignite. There's a power that's underneath, and you can't see it till you believe. On the edge of infinity. Feel the rush under the lights on the higher stage. A part of your life they can't take away. Just like the blood running through your veins. Everyone's watching through your eyes. There's only two options, win or die. Win or die. Win or die. It went from a spark to an open flame. Now destiny's calling out your name. So reply, so reply. Ignite. It went from a spark to an open flame. Now destiny's calling out your name. So ignite, so ignite.
You know who it is, coming round again. We wanna dose of this, right now it's KDA. I'm a goddess with a blaze, 소리처럼 내 이름 잊지 못하게 loud, 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 loud. I could take you to the top, 절대 멈추지 못해. 내가 끝내주는 bag, yeah, yeah, yeah. And when I start to talk that, oh, you know how to react. I'm a picture perfect face with the wild in my veins. You can hear it in my growl, 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 growl. So keep your eyes on me now. 무엇을 보든 좋아할 거야. 다 할 수 없는 대본. 나와 되길 원한 늘 확신해. We got it all in our hands now. So can you handle what we're all about? We're so tough. Let's get it, show you up. Can you feel the rush now? Ain't nobody bringing us down, 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 down. They could try, but we gonna wear the crown. You could go another round, 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 round. Wish you luck, but you're not bringing us down. Go hard, till we get it, we go hard. We so in it, we pop stars. Only winning, winning now. Ain't nobody bringing us down, 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 down. You ready for this?
Let's go.
See, 언제든지 내 모습 매직 단 한 번에 내가 잡아 절대 기죽지 않지. 펴펴 네가 뭘 알아. 견딜 수 없어 원해도 원하는 게 얼굴에 보여. I'm trouble and you running it. I'm so cold. When I move that way, you gon' be so blown. I'm the realest in the game. Said I'm on fire with the blade. You're about to hear my name, ringing in your head like whoa. So keep your eyes on me now. 무엇을 보든 좋아할 거야. We so tough. Let's get it, show you up. Can you
too fast, life is moving in slow-mo. I'm a god, but I actually don't know. Homie, better put your pride aside. I'm a Benz, get more like a Volvo. Your best stuff looks like my words. Synapses, fire, and burst. Got the whole crew with me, body do damage. You know we ain't average. I ain't gonna say this again, but it's in my time. Better look in my eyes. I'm a genius in the skies with my heart on my sleeve. You force to oblige to a king in his prime.
यार गेम क्या सुपर स्मूथ चल रहा है.
Asus गेमिंग लैपटॉप, वो भी अमेजिंग डील के साथ. And I can pay आराम से with a 12-month no cost EMI. Crazy!
कहाँ से लिया?
Bro, JBL earbuds at 45% off. उसके ऊपर free Kindle and Audible subscriptions. Can you believe it? अब ये देख.
Whoa.
शांति.
कहाँ से लिया?
Sorry.
Hey, you! I'm tracking my run on this new smartwatch I got. Noise का 70% off.
ओह,
मैंने सोचा ऐसी डील पे मैं भी अपनी फिटनेस बढ़ा लूं. Seamless Bluetooth calling. Hey, I'm running towards you. Yeah. ये देख, I just got this Intel Evo laptop in exchange for my old one. 20,000 बच गए. बस 99 rupees में extended warranty. Plus 20% off भी मिल गया. Pretty sweet deal, right?
Totally feel you, bro. This iPad was always on my wish list. Got the latest one at a great deal and saved $8,000 in exchange for my old phone.
Hey, what's up?
सबको इतनी बढ़िया डील्स मिल रही हैं. ये सब कहाँ से लिया?
Amazon से लिया.
Amazon Great Indian Festival से.
Amazon Great Indian Festival पर मिलेंगे इलेक्ट्रॉनिक्स पर जबरदस्त डील्स, नो कॉस्ट EMI, एक्सचेंज ऑफर और सेम डे डिलीवरी.
अब इंडिया बोलेगा Amazon से लिया.
Welcome to the TEC Series 9, powered by Amazon India. GPU partner of Zotac Gaming, gaming partner of Intel, our memory and storage partner of Crucial, and our laptop partner of Asus, and of course, our broadcast partners of Loco. We've got our final round of the Southeast Asian qualifiers coming up, with NAOS taking on our Vietnamese veterans of Fancy United. Joining me will be our extremely talented producer of Sid, as well as my fellow caster here of Zach. How are you feeling about this one? And more importantly, do you think that Fancy have what it takes to potentially go to our group stage?
They definitely do have what it takes, but the question is who's going to come out on top? Because I think that over the course of this entire event, both NAOS as well as Fancy have demonstrated that they have the tenacity to really power through these maps, the talent to pop off when the time calls for it the most. And, I was going through the stats for these two teams, and they've never, in all the time that they've played, I don't think they've ever gone head to head against each other. So, more than anything else, I'm excited to see what this first encounter between these two teams is going to signal.
You're absolutely right. They haven't been able to play against each other, despite, I imagine, scrimming against each other quite a lot. Of course, Fancy, they've recently come back from the APAC LCQ, and from the looks of things, they haven't really slowed down since then. They've continued to practice, they continue to improve. We have seen a small roster change with removing Heisey and adding Killers. Killers, let's be honest, has definitely filled the boots of Heisey and has been doing really damn well in this tournament. So this is going to be very interesting to see if he'll be properly stress tested against NAOS. But let's take a look at the prize pool. Zach, there is a lot of money on the line here.
Definitely is. 30,000 US dollars is going to be the overall prize pool, with the first place winner going to be taking away 13,000 off that. Definitely something that you would like to have in your bank account at the end of the day. But there's something for everybody who does qualify, because second place they get 7,000, third they get 3,000, and fourth also get 3,000 each. Aside from that, all of the 8 teams, the top 4 from SA and SEA, who have qualified, will receive 500 USD respectively. So even if you don't quite walk away with all of it, you do get something in the bank. But Kremer, I think more than just the monetary sums that are at stake, it is also reputation, because this is the first official Pacific VCT off-season event, and it's nice to have money in the bank, but it's also nice to be known as a team that walks away with that title in your pocket.
Yeah, absolutely right. Let's take a look at this matchup, of course. Now, NAOS for me have done very damn well in this bracket. I feel like they went into this as, I don't want to say underdogs, but definitely not one of the favorites. But they were able to dethrone Southbill. They were able to beat RRQ. For me, they've had, I would argue, one of the harder runs in this tournament. Now against Fancy, if they can beat Fancy, then they go into the group stage, in my opinion at least, as categorically one of the favorites. I really, really want to see what they have in store for us now, and against Fancy, a team which will absolutely have the preparation there to try and counteract them. I want to see sort of if we can see some very innovative plays, sort of some spontaneous changes of strategies on the fly against Fancy.
Yeah, I agree with you there. And also to add on, like you mentioned, I think the first match that now was played, it was against RRQ, one of the announced franchise teams, I believe. This might not be their final roster, but the fact that it was a kind of an upset coming in, that they were able to win in. But looking at the rosters for both of these teams, we're going to be starting off with Fancy United here. Like you mentioned, Killers coming in as their new player, and for lack of a better word, this lad has been an absolute star here. On that flex role between that duelist and that initiator. I think that he's managed to get the MVP like twice so far.
Yeah, he has done, and honestly, doesn't surprise me very much. Killers has done so damn well. One of the other players who I think hasn't had too much of a chance to really explode, but has really worth keeping an eye on, is Yes I Can. I think that he's like a hidden potential, because we don't often see him sort of spearheading these site takes. He's often on the breach, often on the Astra. But despite being on the breach predominantly, he's more than happy to change the tempo on his own accord. He's more than happy to be the one who leads the counter aggression, and because of that means that Fancy's retakes are usually very damn strong.
Fancy, they're a team that is excellent on the defensive side. A lot of discipline, a lot of patience coming in. I've noticed how they like to stack up on those ults. But, before we talk more about Fancy, let's take a look at NAOS here. Because, like we mentioned, they were kind of the underdog team heading into this particular tournament here. And they've performed above expectations. They're one of the most resilient teams that I've seen. In fact, I think just yesterday's game where they went up against South Builds, they were able to pull that reverse sweep off 2-13 on that first map, but they still win it 2-1. And I think that mainly goes to, you can talk about about the team itself and how everybody on this team tends to perform, especially G there on that initiator role. This man is one of the most talented initiators I've seen in the APAC region, and of course, Blurred on the chamber. He just does not miss.
Yep, and Blurred for me was slightly inconsistent in that series against South Built, but that was where G was able to really shine. I think that one of the other players as well on NAOS that we really have to keep an eye on is Kakarot. He had a fairly quiet series against South Built, but he is a player who absolutely has potential. He sort of, Kakarot and G kind of remind me of Tesseract, where, yeah, they're not on the duel list, but that doesn't seem to matter. Regardless of what agent they play, they are damn good. We're going to take a look at our head-to-head, and it's going to be between G and Killers. How do you feel about these players, Zach?
I mean, like I mentioned, G, he's been like the bastion for the side of Naos here, and he just puts up the numbers consistently, time and time again. As you can look at it, he is going to be slightly above on the stats in this head to head. But Killers, he is kind of new to the team, so he's probably just hammering out the kinks there as they try to really integrate him in the team. And so far, he's been doing great on that flex role. I think that he overall over the course of the series yesterday, for example, he had one of the most consistent scores there. An average ACS of about 279. If I'm not wrong, but here it says 273. So nevertheless, over the course of this tournament, he has been performing, and considering that he is new to the lineup, like we've said, it's definitely it goes to show that we have to watch out for him.
No, you're right. And what's interesting for Killers is that he's willing to share the KO with Nizzy. So it means that Nizzy's able to fall back on playing Jet on some maps, even playing Astra on some Phoenix, sorry, on some others. And it means that when the race is required, we see the change from Killers. It shows a really versatile lineup. And because of the versatility we see from Fancy, it means their map pool is going to be quite broad. On topic of map pool, let's take a look at our veto. It's going to be NAOS picking Breeze, followed up by Fancy moving us to Ascent, and then the only map these teams have in common is going to be this third map of Bind. Now, for me, we saw Breeze be a true power map for NAOS here. I think for Fancy, though, the one thing that they do have going in their favor is that they are going to have a lot of footage to go over from that initial game against South Built, and that may be something that gets exploited.
Yeah, that is the case. I was again for Breeze. I think both of these teams they have a lot of practice playing the map. Pretty similar win rate overall, but now was like you mentioned, they have that win streak going in their favor, being able to beat both RRQ as well as South Built Esports in this particular tournament. Map number 2 though, that is going to be interesting to me because we are going to be heading over to Ascent. I wouldn't say it is a really great map for NAOS. I think that they did play in a third-party tournament. It was a Predator tournament in the Philippines, and they lost to Team Secret. Of course, it is Team Secret, so it is quite a bit of a challenge. But nevertheless, it is not one of their stronger maps. But this is surprising. It is surprising to me that Fancy did pick up a sense, because even though they were able to win against Todak yesterday, they look just a bit shaky. They have looked shaky historically on this particular map, and their overall win rate isn't great. But I think that they've really gone back to the drawing board. We saw against Todak the kind of adaptation they were really able to bring in, especially on those mid rounds. And of course, that initial aggression, the way they were playing for high information, it just goes to show they've put in a lot of work as to how they can play the map there.
You're absolutely right, but that's enough nattering about potentials, what ifs, maybes, and soon to be. It's time to go into our agent select over on Breeze for our opening map, with Fancy moving to the attack, opting to start on the attack, interestingly enough. And we are going to be seeing, of course, Nizzy over on that Jets, really the player you have to keep an eye on here. Yes, I can, surprisingly, bringing out the Phoenix as well. So double duelist, and more importantly, with Wukong over, I believe Wukong is Killers here, on the KO, it means you have double flash for Fancy. Over on NAOS, it's a little bit more meta, a little bit more standard. We're seeing nothing too innovative from their last agent select. The one thing I want to highlight, though, is G's Stover is damn good.
Yeah, if I'm not wrong, he was the MVP for that particular map as well. But yeah, like you mentioned, a very standard setup coming in from Naos. But like you mentioned, for Fancy, this is interesting to see because you do have that cipher to be able to completely anchor out a side. But that double duelist combo, I think the last time we did see a double duelist coming in was in one of the group stages in I believe it was one of the VCT qualifiers. I think Challengers too. And Paper X, they pulled off the most insane looking comp I've ever seen on this particular map. 3 duelists, 1 initiator, and a brimstone to boot. And this just gives me the same vibes as that particular series there.
I think for Paper Rex, they have Paper Rex can only do Paper Rex things, and like trying to copy them may actually come back to bite you, because Paper Rex is the only team that can get away with it. For Fancy, this Phoenix pick for me is either going to be the best pick they've made, and it's going to absolutely win in the game fundamentally, or it's going to be really rough, and they're really going to struggle. The Cypher means that it sort of makes up that lack of defensive capabilities, but I think regardless, they're going to have quite an aggressive defense. With the Phoenix coming out, it explains why they've opted to start on their attack. Hopefully, if you're on Fancy, I think the main objective here is to try and get as many rounds as you possibly can before NAOS are able to sort of slow the tempo, before they're able to establish themselves and start really punching back.
Yeah, on Breeze in particular, it's a map where the orb is, at least on that A side, it's fairly attacker-sided, so they are probably looking to get that Phoenix ult online as pumping as much as possible, because especially with the recent buff coming in, right? You are going to be able to keep your armor on top of everything else, so that is going to be an extra life, basically. Player number 6 online for the side of Fancy United. And aside from that, the flash as well around those tight corners is going to be pretty useful, but again, they already do have that jet to try and create some space. So the Phoenix pick, I am wondering if they have any kind of strategies in play. Perhaps that wall as well. We've seen how the neon wall can be really used to cut across sites, and it can basically facilitate a B take by itself, whether or not you have your Viper still alive. So perhaps something along those lines is coming along from the side of Fancy. But for NAOS here, I like that they've gone for what they're used to. They found success with this multiple times in this tournament itself, and they're not going to be risking it really. They're just going to be, we know this works. We're not going to try and fix what isn't broken. So yeah, it's gonna be the tried and tested versus the new and improved, or maybe not improved. We have to see though.
This is where I put you on the spot, and I love doing this with my co-casters. Zach, having seen the Agent Select, who do you think is winning map 1? And having seen the Veto, who do you think is winning this series?
I mean, looking at this particular map, I am going to have to go with the tried and tested, because that Phoenix, it does not give me good vibes. I might be wrong here. He might be the most insanely talented Phoenix we've ever seen. For me, I think the one person who plays Phoenix and stands out is Scream from Liquid, but this guy might be able to top him. So I don't know. I would have to say that it's going to be NAOS, but I might, in fact, I might be cursing them right now with the caster's curse here. But overall, for the course of the series, I think that it might be likely that we're going to be seeing map number 3, which is Bind. And statistically, again, Bind is going to be that weird map that these teams, both of them, they've had a very up and down rate in. But overall, I think that Fancy, they did prove that they have a very strong, they have a strong Bind discipline Bind against them, because even though yesterday's map against Todak, it went into overtime, they were able to really persevere it and get it done here. So I think that they do have a little bit of an advantage when it comes to just being able to persevere. But for the side of NAOS, they have put up one of the most dominating performances on Bind as well. So I think it's going to be very close. I think that Fancy, they just have a little bit of an upper hand, but NAOS, you can never count them out. Everybody thought that ROQ would be taking that first one, but they have proven everybody wrong, and they might just prove me wrong. But Kramer, I could put the same question to you. Well, who do you think is going to take it today?
This is where I now explain why you're wrong. Because I love new stuff. I love it. I love innovation in all forms. Fancy, power to them in bringing out the Phoenix. So I'm actually thinking Fancy probably win map 1. NAOS are going to really need something strong if they want to be able to take this into a third map. That being said, NAOS, for me, if Blurred shows up, if Blurred's playing well, then the whole team does well. And usually they either win or they lose as a unit. So I think that sort of first 3 rounds, if NAOS can get those first 3 rounds, they're in a great position. But against the Phoenix, I am going to root for Fancy on this first map. In the series, I'm going to delay that prediction. We'll see. We'll see for the time being. Kind of give me 3 to 5 rounds. I get 3 to 5 working rounds.
That's not fair. You didn't give me 3 to 5 rounds, but
you didn't ask for 3 to 5 rounds.
That's fair. Okay, I'll keep it in mind next time. This is our first cast together after all. But anyway, we're gonna be heading into map number 1, Breeze here. It is going to be Fancy starting off on the attack, and this Phoenix pick is going to be what everyone is watching out for. It is going to be a bit of initial mid pressure applied right off the bat, though that beautiful recon will spawn out both players, if I'm not wrong, making things a little bit more difficult. The Viper will committed towards a mid will facilitate this B split, if I'm not wrong, and just like that, Nizzy is able to find that first headshot, and the defense on that B side is looking incredibly weak right now. In fact, there's gonna be nobody there, Kramer.
Yeah, this is going to be a really hard-pressed retake for now, so unless they can shut down some players pretty quickly, at least find a way to sort of weaken the attackers. And they weaken HP, but they're not weak in numbers, as Nizzy's able to double down now, shutting down Kakarot, leaving it all onto the remaining NAOS players. NDG, I don't think he meant to kill Nizzy there, but he certainly won't complain with it. Accompanied by G in Tube, we're seeing a very fast push here. Yes, I can, able to trade. Yes, I can. 2, 3, does not matter. That will be the first round for Fancy. And I told you, I called it. I said the Phoenix would be good. This fills me with joy. This fills me with joy.
Yeah, great positioning coming in from Yes I Can towards the latter end of the round to be able to wrap it up. And off the back of that 3K, he has half his ult ready to go. Also has that Vandal bind coming in. I always like this strat coming in from Fancy. They like to go for that heavy purchasing power for those extra rifles, so that, you know, if they do convert this anti-eco, their bonus is going to be looking incredibly possible right now. As for NAOS, not much on the line except for pistols, and yet again you do see a little bit of mid control being taken here by the side of Fancy. Nobody from NAOS is going to really be contesting it, though there are 2 towards this nest area here. They spot out the push coming in, but that Viper wall is going to completely cut off all vision. In the meantime, there is an attempted push from this A side. Kakarot finds one, but that's going to be it. Picks up the Vandal though, so that will be interesting. Never mind, he goes out immediately. They retake the Vandals, they win the round, almost flawlessly losing only 1 player. That was really fast, it was like 30 seconds.
Yeah, fast round, and it's a clean round as well. Only losing 1 player against the eco means that your economy doesn't take too heavy a hit. And with such a heavy investment into your second round, in being able to now go into your third, you have some money in the bank, and you also have a buy, which can really challenge the full buy of NAOS here. With Vandals versus Vandals, Yes I Can, just 1 ult orb away from being able to bring out the first run it's back on that Phoenix, and with the entirety of Fancy poised to hit this A site, I think that run it back may be exactly what we're about to see now as they look to challenge this Viper and Jet.
Yeah, they, again, like I mentioned, this A-orb in particular, very, very easy for these attackers to get. That Cypher Cam is going to spot out 1 player, I believe, for the main, but, you know, Yes I Can, he doesn't go for the ult, instead he just waltz into side and is immediately going to be punished by Nizzy. The trade is quick, but right now, Fancy, they are at a little bit of a disadvantage when it comes to manpower. So we are trying to change that with this lurk around through the halls area, but Kakarot will swing at the right time to catch him off guard. And now it's going to come down to these 2 last remaining players for the side of Fancy. Nico, though, coming in towards mid. CO trying to find that kill, just spot out a player, gets the headshot. Blurred, though, will be enough of a distraction to distract him and help NDG get that final pick. And it's all down to the new player who just joined Fancy to close out this 1v4.
He doesn't even have to close out the 1v4 I think damage may be enough. Killer, good for the first. He knows generally that there's going to be 2 players left on this A site. The question is, where did that chamber go? That mid lurker, where's he positioned himself? And for Killers, he's going to slowly make a foray through Tube.
Left.
The off angle from Blurred here, though, is going to be damn difficult to clear. I don't know if Killers anticipates it. He does, but he's not quick enough. That'll be the first round for now, since they put themselves on the board and show Phoenix or not, we're still able to strike back. This is still our home ground. This is still our map. And there's no getting away with running out of A main like that.
Yeah, like you mentioned, the economic damage, it has been done, though. I think they did lose 2 of their players, so they are going to be able to buy back in, though. You do see that light armor on G. Aside from that, though, it is going to be run it back time for Yes I Can if he opts to use it in this particular round. The buy is going to be there for both these teams, with the exception of Wukong, who is going to be forced to play with that Sheriff to force up with the rest of the team. Looking at the other ults, though, Nizzy also does have that Blaze Storm almost online, so next round, if they do lose this, he'll have something as a little bit of a backup plan, or if they do win, he can drop a rifle to a teammate. Either way, though, again, this mid position is going to be contested. Blurred getting aggressive towards his B side will spot out Suka, and now the Sentinels, well, I call Chamber a Sentinel because he is, but somehow you doubt it. He will be trying to isolate these fights, but in the meantime, look at this double prong push coming in. Blurred getting the first, but does he know there are going to be people behind him is going to be the question. Yes I Can in the meantime equalizes, and look at the positioning, Krummer. This is scary.
The timing all around the map now is so crushing. Fico, Blurred, Yes I Can, all come in with a symphony of frags, leaving it all on Tomoya. 1 versus 3. Up against the run it back. I doubt we'll see it deployed this round, but it is there as almost an assurance to try and shut down this final NAOS player. For Moya, he has predicted the site correctly, so he is in a position to try and stop this assault. Nizzy will be the first point of contact. However, Nizzy doesn't take any prisoners. It'll be a third for Fancy as they go 3-1 into the leads, hitting back onto NAOS with a very strong repartee.
That was almost a pre-fire. Nizzy was ready for that. And, Nizzy does not miss in those kind of situations. But just like that, though, it is going to be the third round coming in for Fancy. And the economy completely broken for the side of NAOS. No Tour de Force either, or Bladestorm for Mojer or Blur to work with here. So it's going to be a very difficult round for them to convert. On the other side, though, Nizzy, like I mentioned, will probably opting to be playing with that Bladestorm. Wukong also only one away from that outcome. And lots of ults online, or almost online for the side of now, so for the side of Fancy, though I don't think they'll really be planning to use them this time around, as they go in for a 5% B push. The Phoenix ult will finally be committed. This man has held on to this for 2 rounds now, and just like that, they are going to be able to get the B-side almost for free. The rendezvous will be used so that they don't die to the Phoenix ult, and just like that, the spike goes down. It's going to be a full 5-on-5 retake here.
5-5 retake, but NAOS don't have the best of economies. Their firepower isn't great here, so they're going to have to hope for some clean shots. However, Nizzy, he knows a thing or two about clean. That 1,000-folded steel, finding the chest of NDG. Blurred is able to respond with a headhunter, but with Kakarot spotted in tube now, Nizzy's going to continue the harassment with these jump spots. That Blade's... Dagger is actually going to ruin his day. Blurred trades his second kill with the Headhunter now. Really starting to do the damage as he pulls out the Vandal. Suka through mid, laboured, but finishes off G. On for the 4K, and 4K it shall be. Crisp, clean, and shuts down Blurred. 4-1 now, as NAOS move into a full buy, sure. And the solace they can take here is they forced out the run it back as well as the Bladestorm.
One major ult down, but now they have to deal with the null command coming in from Fancy.
I think one bullet!
One bullet, last kill indeed. But one thing I'd like to note about this particular round. Oh, okay, wait, hold on. Before I talk about that, it's gonna be a double operator coming in for NAOS here, who are looking to gear up in style for this defense. I think that one of them is going to be positioned on each side, so that might make things a little bit rough for the side of these Fancy players right now. That Viper spit as well, right off the bat, going to try and shut off the B side here. This time around, it is again a little bit more of a slower play coming in from the side of Fancy. And like I mentioned, one thing that I like about Fancy is once they get the spike in, there's always a player just circling back around to try and get the timing on the lurks. And so far, they've been finding it with precision. A little bit of a jumping Blurred. I think he spotted the head, but was not able to quite take a shot quite yet. So with 1 minute left on the clock, Fancy, they have taken a lobby control, but the spike is still in base, and I don't know where they're gonna end up going here, Kramer.
I'm actually curious how they've used the Viper's Pit while simultaneously going for a double op setup. I think that if you're on Fancy now, it may be a very genuine choice to potentially try and work your way through that Viper's Pit, regardless of the implications that may have. Instead, though, they're trying to run down this clock, trying to bait one of these operators into an unfavorable fight. As the Phoenix goes for tube control, I don't know if this has been spotted and relayed to the rest of the team. It may well have been, with G still on the angle.
30 seconds left.
Just checking for any encroaching players. 30 seconds on the clock. There's the opening. With the Jet going to window, this could be perfectly timed, but on something timed. Timing is of the essence here.
4v4 right now. That null command is going to be invested, and off the back of that, this A execute is going to be the plan. Blurred finds one, but that's Suka striking back with that Cypher ult. Is going to know exactly where everyone is. Blurred in a bad position, not able to rendezvous out either. Nizzy will be able to find that pick. A 2v3 retake right now, and they still haven't been able to flush out Nizzy. They know that he's somewhere towards halls probably, so they're going to have to constantly be worried about the flank. Mojer is able to find one. Pops the Bladestorm as well, so that is going to be an additional ultimate in their pocket. And Nizzy on the flank. What can he find? Pots out one, but not quite able to connect the shot here, unfortunately. And now they know where he is. The shots aren't connected, but the timer is still ticking right now. Wukong finding one. The defuse is coming through. It's being stuck. Gets halfway, but Fancy, they close the round out. And initially I thought with the timer, they got the spike down with less than 10 seconds left. Kramer. I thought it was going to be really tight, but Suka in particular being able to get the information as to where these remaining players from NAOS were. I think that, along with the lurk coming in from Nizzy, those were the two real clinchers. Because right off the bat, you just see the first pick going in favor of NAOS there.
Yeah. And I like how we're seeing a fairly quick timeout as well from NAOS. I think it's kind of needed at this point. It's been a rough couple of rounds, and Fancy, they cut it bloody close. Really damn close in that round there. Again, as you said, kind of sub 10 seconds left before the plant comes in. All it took there was NAOS to land a lucky shot on the player with the spike. KO goes down, and then any option to play the after plant is gone. The one thing that Fancy can take solace in, though, is because NAOS invested 2 operators, they have no money left. More importantly, no Viper's Pit or Blade Storm, and that Blade Storm would have been crucial for a almost eco ability going into the 7th round. That's no longer an option. Yes, they have the Tour de Force, but against the KO, that's going to have limited capabilities.
I mean, we saw how Blurred got messed up last time around. That Null Command, despite him being able to get 1 pick with the operator, he wasn't able to rendezvous out, and that caused so much trouble. So like you mentioned, the KO pick on this particular map finding incredible value for the side of Fancy United here. This time around, again, I like how on these eco rounds, they just stack up together. They just want to go in for those trades rather than trying to find holes in the map, and they just want to get the round over with as quickly as possible. For the side of NAOS, so like you mentioned, not much of a buy. In the Tour de Force, like you mentioned, is going to be invested right off the bat. Suka going on a fishing expedition towards this halls area while everybody else goes in towards main Moir. Yeah, does get spotted out, will be forced to dash away, but all this utility being dumped is doing quite a bit of damage, and off the back of that, Viper Molly bringing Nizzy down to, I believe it was 50 HP. Kakarot is able to find the first pick off the body shot. Yet again, though, this Phoenix wall is going to let Yes I Can aggress a little bit. Pulls the flash out, does manage to connect it, and he will be able to get that pick. They also do have side control now, though backside is still occupied by Kakarot. Pulls out utility at the wrong time, but his teammates there to hold his back. It's all down to just the Tour de Force as well as whatever this Sova can pull out of his arsenal. That's going to be a headshot coming in from JE, but that's immediately going to be traded out. It's all down to Blurred here to close out this 1v3 and this KO. He's still alive. He's going to be such a menace right now. The pre-fire coming in. At least he manages to pick up a Vandal. Gets one.
Ooh.
But this 1v1 is not going to be closed out as Yes I Can says, no, you can't.
That was well worth it. Well worth it for NAOS there. Being able to kill 4 players on an eco. More importantly, being able to allow Blood to go for those sort of ego swings. If he's landing shots like that, then he's really going to be feeling the confidence. And I think that's a really good sign for NAOS, actually, that this game won't stay this one-sided. We see a timeout come from Fancy off the back of that. I really like the timing of this timeout, purely because it means that you've seen Blood pop off, right, you time it, you allow him to cool down, you allow him to reset, and in the process, you also make NAOS reset any hope that would have been acquired from that round. Going to another buy versus buy. We've seen that NAOS have favored bringing out operators here. I want to see if Fancy potentially change the pace and go for something much quicker now in their site takes.
I mean, so far, looking at the pattern for Fancy here, on these rounds where they know NAOS is a low buy, they tend to stack up and go for a quick push. But otherwise, they play for quite a bit of map control. You can see the defaulting, the discipline really coming in for these players. And always there is someone walking up halls or mid. And they found so much value off the back of that. Both Nizzy as well as his counter duelist, fellow duelist, they managed to just find that first pick consistently. And yet again, I think this is going to be the 3rd run back for Yes I Can, or is it just a 2nd? I'm not sure, but he is going to be on the top of that scoreboard here. The buy, though, is going to be coming back in for NAOS here, and they're under a lot of pressure, right? They're down 5 rounds. Their economy has been bouncing up and down, and with this investment, they want to try and convert it. They also do have quite a few ults to work with, so that might be what they need to really close it out. Heading into this one, though, again, the mid control is going to be contested, though that recon will be doing quite a bit of damage to Nizzy, enabling Moy to get that first pick. He does fall back after that, or tries to anyway, the Viper wall before it goes up. Wukong is able to trade it out, and again, Blurred, you mentioned that he has woken up Kremer, and he's going to be the one to take these fights down towards mid with that operator.
Yes, Kakarot's aggressed. I think he's expecting this swing from the Viper, but it's a really disciplined setup now. Fico brings the walls back up and is now going to try and challenge this chamber, accompanied by the Cypher of Suka. Now, look where the spike is. Fancy still haven't decided on a site. You know, they've still got the Phoenix lurking over to A alongside the KO. With the Viper now going to retrieve it, it looks like it will be a chance for the Cypher to lurk a little bit. But for now, with an available Hunter's Fury, I worry that they're just going to be able to delay the plant and allow retakes coming very swiftly. Run it back, good for the first. Yes, I can. Brings it back, and there's that Hunter's Fury. Tagging the Phoenix, finishing the Phoenix. Does he get a third? Oh, he doesn't quite.
30 seconds left.
Only 2 of the 3 beams land, but that's enough. And now look at the flank from the Cypher.
Yes, Suka on his way, just doing classic Suka things, but it seems like Blurred expects it because he's going to be watching the angle even as the spike goes down. The Viper's bit though invested, that's going to make this retake incredibly difficult, even though NAOS do have the numbers advantage here. Both these players are going to be trying to play as close as possible, trying to trade each other out because it is going to be the KO incredibly low here, just one bullet away or one shock dart away if G had managed to connect it. The spray through the smoke will be able to find Wukong. The spike is tapped, the head is spotted, and NDG will connect the shot. NAOS, they managed to find their first round, I believe, after, you know, that bullseye really coming in. The second in total, a beautiful retake. And again, like you mentioned, Blurred as a player to definitely watch out for. Him and G managed to make this round work. And of course, just as Hunter's Fury, he knew his timings perfectly. He was counting down the seconds until that rounded back ran out, and he was immediately able to capitalize off it and get that pick. And of course, I think they expected this Viper's Pit as well, because you saw them just gearing up towards CT, waiting for it to be invested before going in for that retake, surrounding the players from Fancy on all sides and just finishing things off.
Yeah, it's a really strong round from both Blurred and NDG. NDG, in our previous series against Southbuilt, was the clutch player. You know, consistently winning these 1 versus X's. And, well, showing his prowess once again. Here's that Viper's Kit killing both players. Blurred now aggressive, holds for the jet, shuts him down. Headhunter not needed as Kakarot's there for the response. Down to the 3 versus 5, and suddenly Fancy find themselves caught flat-footed. Sukia swings into mid, looking to challenge G, but information is enough for the NAOS player. They back up once again.
Ooh, G trying to take the fight against 2, but you don't do that against Suka, who will, again, after being able to stabilize things, possibly confuse Mojo as to whether he's fallen back or not. But the gap in the cyber cage is there. Mojo not quite able to connect the shot, unfortunately, and now they're going to be pushing into this D side. The wall, though, from Yes I Can is going to be having a gap, and unfortunately, off the back of that, NDG is able to find 2 before he's finally shut down. It's all down to just Suka here in this 1v3 on this B side. I feel like I've seen this before when Suigetsu getting his clutch on the same agent, in fact, but this time around, Suka with the slow HP, I don't really fancy his chances. It's just going to take one stray wallbang bullet, especially with the spike being dropped in the open like that on the B side, and Kakarot will shut things out. But you know, I think this is going to be the resurgence that we've talked about from NAOS. Even though they're down, they never stop fighting, and after that last successful round, it's just propelling them in. Blurred has woken up, he has an operator, he is hitting his shots, and that might be what NAOS need to really like end this half at a good score, like a possible 6-6 or even a 7-5. A 5-7.
You're absolutely right. And you look at the buy now from Fancy. First time all game, they've suddenly find themselves a little bit strapped for cash. They do have the Hero Vandal on Yes I Can, but this needs to be a true Hero Vandal with sort of Sheriffs, Spectres, Marshals. It's not what you want when you're trying to challenge what is a very damn good buy. However, when you have very damn good players, it seems to make up for the differential now. As Moyo swings out, caught by the flash, could be in serious trouble here as Yes I Can finishes it off with that Hero Vandal, leaving Kakarot alone backside. Flashed again, these flashes from Yes I Can are just perfect. The Hot Hands is going to allow the heal, and now to the 2 versus 5 retake. NAOS weren't expecting this at all.
Yeah, the flashes were hitting the precision, and of course, like I mentioned, that buff coming in for the Phoenix Flash, it is definitely showing its potential, because, you know, before you would have been able to dodge that quite easily, but not everyone's really ready for it. The surprise pick is going to make things very difficult right now. Just G as well as his teammate left to try and close this one out. Molly comes through, the player gets spotted up, but it's not going to be the headshot quite connecting. In this 1v5 G, at least that is the fight, but it's not going to be a flawless. That's going to be denied, but apart from that, he swings out. Wukong will be able to get that pick, and a Thrifty will materialize right now for Fancy, and it's all off the back of heroics coming in from Yes I Can, who says yes I can indeed. But off the back of that, NAOS, their economy, it's been bouncing back and forth. They're gonna be able to barely buy back in. No major ults either to work with the exception of the null command. As for Fancy though, they have one of their own, and of course Yes I Can again just one away from that run it back. We're gonna be looking at a possible quick B hit coming here, Kremer, looking at where these players are stacking up.
Yeah, you talk about Yes I Can with those good flashes. You need to remember that was invigored by Nizzy's instant opening for that Marshal. He now gets to swap out and bring out the Operator. And for NDG, who, yes, is good in clutch scenarios, how is he good in single site holds? Because right now it looks like Fancy United want to try their luck with this B hit. Slow start for the time being, though. And look at the aggression through A main here. Moya hunting for a player, accompanied by Blurred with the bait and switch. Do Fancy expect this? I mean, Yes I Can's clearing it, but he brings out his knife. It's all down to timing now.
I mean, so far, NAOS, they haven't really been seen getting aggressive, but there's no rendezvous active either for Blurred. He's gonna be the one to take the first contact, gets this first. The crossfire is immaculate, and just like that, 3 players are going to be down for Fancy. The last 2, they try to see if the re-aggression comes in, but when you have that much of a bad advantage, you really don't want to squander it. And now as well, they have the discipline. They're gonna be just falling back and holding a little bit towards A main instead. But the thing is that before this round, there wasn't really much aggression coming in from NAOS. And apart from the aggression and them being able to get those picks, it was also just such a lot of information coming in. And these players were going to be stacked up towards that B side. It's all down to just Ficio on his lonesome right now, trying to go forward. Does spot out the head of Kakarot, not quite able to connect the shot, gives the information away, and now has to deal with all of these players just looking at him. A flawless round for NAOS here, and they managed to civilize at 4-7. If they can get 5, that might be the half that they really needed here. Because on the defense, this Phoenix, I don't know how much value it's going to find compared to how incredible SICAN has been on this attacking round. But look at this, from 4 ults for the side of Fancy here.
Absolutely right, and I imagine with these ults, they're just going to rain down on one of these sides. Yes, a Bulldog has to come out for Nizzy, but he has the Blade Storm as a backup. Alongside this, I want to see how the null commands are utilized. I feel like that's the one ult we haven't seen had too much impact from Fancy, so I want to see how they use to deploy it. Kakarot, also with a null command of his own, is going to be the sort of the big silence potentially to be used onto Fancy. G spots out the Jet, but not quite aware of the Viper. Instead, that wall being deployed will cue his position now. So as he goes to the high ground, down to elbow. But this will do Fancy no. They're moving into a stack here. 3 players, coiled like pythons, are ready to spring the venom onto Fancy. Especially if they misstep on this assault.
I know exactly. That is interesting. That you run it back will be able to find incredible value, just baiting out that peak here from the Viper. That's going to leave the side so much more vulnerable right now, as Nizzy finds 2 of his own off the back of that Blade Storm, as well as that Spectre. They also do manage to get Wukong back up, so that's going to make things even more difficult. Yet again, now is in this 2v5 retake situation. They don't really have information exactly as to where all of these players are. Any second, they're used to these lurks coming in quick. And again, this is the last round of this half. No point in saving. Nizzy with the 3rd on his round already. He's hungry for these picks. Manages to get, now Bocher manages to get 1, but Nizzy will be there for the quick refrag, and 4 kills on the round for him off the back of that Blade Storm. And it all started here towards mid, where he managed to get the information that mid was pretty clear. Elbow control was taken, and then they just go for the quick execute with those 2 ults to run it back, as well as that null command, shutting down, because on that B side, right, you are going to be able to hold on just with the help of the Viper smoke, the Viper snake bite, all of that utility. It buys so much time, but when your KO ult hits, all of that is going to be completely offline, and despite having 3 players, they just could not hold on to the side, and that was so unfortunate there for NAOS. But 4-8, it's not bad considering it was on defense.
Looking at Yes I Can go 12-6 on the Phoenix, all I'm saying, Zach, is trust the process. Trust the process. Innovation, it does come, and I am very happy with how well Fancy played that half. That being said, now they did a very good job in sort of the latter stages, slowing the pace and sort of removing the space for the Phoenix to utilize his effectiveness, especially those flashes. But it took a bit too long to adapt for my liking. Going on to the second half now, NAOS need to start it well, otherwise they're going to be in some serious trouble.
Yeah, they really have to try and close out this pistol, because otherwise, like you mentioned, a really big round deficit for them, and you don't want to let it get to double digits, because Fancy, they're very momentum-based teams, and you really don't want you don't want to let them run away with it, for lack of a better phrase. But looking at the scoreboard right now, it is Blurred who is the sole sentinel. See what I did there, sentinel, for the side of NAOS here, who has been popping off on the rounds where he's allowed to pop off. Whenever people do walk into his crosshairs, immediately the round, it tends to shift in NAOS' favor most of the time. But for the side of Fancy, it's a little bit more of an even distribution here. Of course, Nizzy leading the charts, followed very closely by Yes I Can, but both of these duelists have been enabled by Suka on that KO, just being able to shut down the utility, counter utility coming in from NAOS, making the execute look so easy for both Nizzy and Yes I Can, and they've just been W gaming, for lack of a better phrase. And I know you said that only Paper Rex can pull off the multiple duelists, but it seems like they've taken a page from their book and they are playing in style here.
You're absolutely right. And on the topic of Suka, actually, I think that for the Cypher, this is where he's going to have shine on the defense. You see the trust sort of Fancy have in him. All 4 members head to B. They leave Suka on A. They sort of say, Suka, just do your thing, brother. Suka, go kill. Suka, you know, the hairs on the back of his of his head sort of raise up. His pupils dilate. He sort of whispers for a second. Yes, okay. And now we're about to see what happens on A.
Oh yeah, like you mentioned, this 4-player stack, I don't know if NAOS are going to be expecting it right now, because, you know, you do see a little bit more pressure being applied on the site where the Cypher is, and the thing is, if you look at it statistically on Breeze, whenever a Cypher is picked, they usually have their setup on that B side most of the time, because the way you can arrange those tripwires, they just make it very difficult to really aggress into site, and either a Cypher or a Viper can solo hold on the B side, unless, of course, the KO catches them off guard. But like I mentioned, they also like to know that NAOS prefer to hit this B side more or less, especially on these pistol rounds. So that's a little bit of research, like you mentioned, the fact that their VODs have been out for Breeze for a while. That is a little bit of extra information that they have to work with, and they are going to be going in for this Gambo stack here, and it seems like it's going to be working out because B is where NAOS seem to be geared up to hit. I think that if Fancy decides to get a little bit aggressive, it might be finding incredible value, because you do see both the KO and Viper just towards main, and again, the 2 duelists looking for that elbow control. They're going to be putting this 2-pronged approach. Blurred watching this angle, pulls his knife out at the worst time, and immediately gets spotted by 2 players. This double flank coming in is going to find so much value right now. Kakarot finally able to trade one out, but aside from that, the man advantage has significantly been taken by Fancy here. And the thing is that there is no other map control anywhere else for NAOS to really regroup to right now. They can try towards mid, but again, you can see the repositioning coming in already from Nizzy, who is going to be watching that particular angle.
I love how disciplined Fancy were there to back off the second they had the man advantage. And once they got that second kill, everyone just slowly shifts away. They realize that NAOS aren't going to chase the kills, so they force them to now go into the 4 versus 3. More importantly, these 3 players with no map control whatsoever. You see how close Suka is to just shoulder peeking towards their spawn. He's got such an effective early warning system set up. Yes, it's only 40 seconds left, but getting to this site is going to be a really, really difficult ordeal. Suka knows they're coming. I don't know if the timing favored him, though. So get into his position. Out comes the dagger. The jig is up. 30 seconds left, though, but can they stop him?
Still playing on the side with that Cyber Cajun, but it goes out at the worst time possible. Not in his favor, like you mentioned there, Kremer, and NGG will be able to pick him up just like that. It is going to be a quick 1-for-1 trade. It's going to come down to this 1v2.
Ooh.
I say 2v2, but it's basically a 1v2 because yes, I can. Again, with the 3k on this particular round, this man and pistol rolls just have something, you know, that makes it spicy, but it is going to be Fancy who get to 9 here, and things are looking very, very rough right now for NAOS because they really needed to win that round, despite being able to stabilize and being able to get the spike down at the very least. They just weren't prepared in that post plant. They had no time because Fancy, they just came running in full tilt, and they had no time to really set up there. Unfortunate there for NAOS, but really well played by Fancy themselves. And off the back of that, yet again, you do see those Vandals being bought in. Despite getting the plant though, NAOS are opting not to really force in on this particular round. And I'm not sure about the decision, honestly.
Can you guess what I'm going to say to you, Zach? Trust the process.
Yes.
This Phoenix has been doing so damn well. And as you mentioned, especially on these pistol rounds where he has the option to heal. He has the option to flash as well. And we saw that flash aggression on Elbow. Backs off, goes into that retake. And does so beautifully. 4 bullets for Blood now in the Headhunter as he makes his dive through mid. Surprisingly, a fairly passive position in mid being held by Fancy, instead focusing on these sites. And luckily for them, this has allowed them to go for what is this 3-man setup on A here, especially if Blood gets caught out in tube, but this could be really, really rough for defense.
Ooh, right off the back though, that's going to be a headshot catching Suka. Blurred might be able to find that pick if he gets the timing, but in the meantime, it's going to be Wukong who finds the timing onto G. 24 HP left on Suka, and he's being hunted down right now by Blurred here. Finally gets the kill, and just like that, that's going to be the Cypher down, but Wukong, he's still going to be holding strong right now. The players from the side of NAOS are trying to find him, but this constant repositioning is making him incredibly difficult to kill right now, and he's going to be able to do the 3rd on the round as well. The 4th, and he swings and connects connects the shot onto NDG. It's all up to Kakarot here. Can he get the shot? No, he can't. It's going to be the ace for Wukong or Killer, the newest player for the side of Fancy, managing to find incredible value. And I think off the back of that, he's also going to have the null command available for this bonus. Or I don't know if you can call these rounds from Fancy really bonuses, considering how much of a buy they have going into them.
I love how Killers chooses to reposition there. I think even knowing that it's not confirmed, it's not guaranteed that they know where his position is, still rotates regardless, though. Still rotates regardless. And yes, I can. Well, yes, he can. Now, not the only one who has to deliver, because Killers are showing that everything you can do, I can also have a good crack at, and he's going to try and continue this momentum now with some aggression through elbow. He's going to be spotted out, though, and is in danger of being caught out. However, this is when Nizzy tries to draw the attention away to allow his teammate to run, and it's a beautiful disengage from Fancy, despite how wounded and battered that KO will be as he retreats with his tail between his legs back to that ace site.
I mean, all of this was just a red herring, though, because it seems like B is going to be where the execute is. But Fancy, they haven't really taken the bait here, because it's still going to be two players positioned towards his backside here. It is going to be Fixtures finding the first one, though the trade is immediate as Suka goes out. It's all down to just his Viper to try and hold on to the site. And in the meantime, on the opposite side of the map, Kakarot has been able to get a pick of his own. So right now, this retake for the side of Fancy is looking a little bit rough right now. However, they do have that null command available to get Blurred in this extremely dangerous position. Not quite able to get the shot, and Fancy, yes I can, he's getting Fancy off the back of being able to get 2 kills, and all up to just one player. G. What can he do? What can he find? And that's going to be nothing. Again, these retakes from Fancy are looking so phenomenal here, Kramer. They're just not giving any time for NAOS to set up or regroup, and they are clearing house as they make their way towards the site in particular. Because Kakarot, he was on the lurk there, and they waited to flush him up before actually regrouping and going for the site.
You see, I was alluding to NAOS not playing particularly badly. It's just Fancy have been playing great.
Joke's over, you're dead.
I may have to take it back. That was a big blunder from NAOS there. Credit where credit's due to yes I can. He punishes it instantly, and he punishes it ruthlessly. Currently going 17-6. He is having a bloody good game. And right now, no one's coming close to matching it. Wukong, yeah, he's also got, Killers does also have 17 kills, but nowhere near the effectiveness of KD, nowhere near the ACS, as NAOS now set up for an A hit, sure, but that last round has got to leave a very bitter taste, and they just don't have enough money to be able to make this work past what maybe a shift onto way.
I mean, they have walked into it, but there is still going to be the camera monitoring action here. The operator already from Nizzy having pushed up with the help of his teammate, yes I can, able to find the first blood for the side of Fancy. The Marshal, I think, does spot out Suka, but not quite able to connect the shot, and now Suka knows that A is going to be where the hit is coming. His camera is going to be broken, so that's going to be no more pesky information coming into the Cypher. Spots out the head of Blurred, but neither player is able to quite connect the shot. It's going to be a full 4-on-5 retake for the side of Fancy here, but they don't have the guns to really contest this with. Suga able to tap heads casually with precision right now. Is ready for the lurk as well, aware of the possibility of it, connecting these kills. It's going to be Blurred who finds the first, gets the second as well. How much more can he get though? Because I think he's running out of headhunter bullets. Does have the tour de force if I'm not wrong. He did manage to pull it out, so perhaps this round is still doable. The clock is ticking, and if they can run out this timer, it might be what they need. But unfortunately, Blurred going down might be the last straw, and VCO is going to be the one to clean it up, and at the last second the defuse is going to come through. But I swear, if Blurred had been able to get that pick towards the main, just perhaps this round could have been won by NAOS off the back of time. But you know, Kremer, talking about how Fancy is playing this attacking half, right? They are completely fearless. Every single round, they are getting aggressive somewhere. We saw it in the pistol on that B side, the previous round on A, and this time around towards mid, they are not leaving any part of the map really uncontested here.
You're absolutely right, and I quite like Blood in that round. He did a very, very good job at sort of making space and keeping Suka from aggressing further than Tube. This allows NDG to attempt the flank, and I mean, the flank landed, right? He was in a position to take the fight. Sure, he lost it, but he was able to get there. You know, enough space and enough time was bought for him to work it out. So I quite like how effective NAOS were on that attack. However, it's through mid. Fico chimes in, Moya falls, and now with the null command popped, Fico, or Vicio, I do apologize, I'm terrible with names, is continuing to just tear through this NAOS attack. We were doing
Yeah, they.
so well with names as well, Zach. I was so proud of myself. I hadn't messed up a single one. Physio, I'm sorry, man. I don't mean for hits.
I'm sure he'll forgive you, Kramer. After all, you have been covering him for a while, including, like you mentioned, you've been working with APAC for a while. So I'm sure that he'll get over you saying his name wrong one time. But yes, I can. That Molly will be burning, I believe, Mojer alive before he finally goes down, and he still has a runner back available, jiggling the angle, trying to find the information. G though is watching for anyone to push forward, but no information for NAOS really as to where the players are. They do know there are two towards this A side here. The runner back being popped just before that KO knife connects is going to keep him alive and is going to buy some time for the rotation to come in. He barely gets away though, as that fragment will do quite a bit of damage. She, though, despite being low, he manages to find another pick. It's all down to just these last two players from NAOS, and DG in particular going huge before Suga gets it. And then again, Kakarot in this 1v2 situation knows the position of both these players, but with the clock ticking, he has to put the spike down, and he just does not have the time or the positioning fancy. They're going to be taking it 13-1, just sweeping NAOS' map pick away from them. Oh no, Kramer.
Trust the process. Trust the process. That Phoenix was such a good pick. I'm so proud of Fancy for that. A really, really strong round, a really strong game from them. Something else to highlight as well was even in that last round when now started getting a little bit of momentum once they actually hit that site. Something that Fancy were doing so damn well was they were able to consistently have a player in position to trade one another even when they were caught out of position. So that operator caught on the stairs, NDG is able to chase him down, but you already had a player in position to trade, so that loss of the operator isn't felt, and you're able to continue your retake. Granted, the spike hadn't even gone down. It wasn't much of a retake. They're still able to keep fighting with a man advantage.
Yeah, and talking about the way Fancy play this particular map, right? Like you mentioned in the onset of the series, they do have a lot of VODs to draw information from. They know how NAOS have been playing this map over the last 2 days and what they like to do. And it was a very, very clean counter strat, for lack of a better word, especially on their defensive round. They know that NAOS, they tend to like clump together, or they like to go in for a little bit of early presence towards that B side. And immediately, just off that pistol, you saw that two-prong push coming in from elbow as well as main. And again, I'd like to highlight the fact that Fancy, they were playing like they were the attackers on every single round, whatever side they were on. They had no fear. And of course, the tip of the spear for them was none other than Yes I Can. And yes, he could, because I want to see the score, the number of first places that this man has in particular. He was just phenomenal for Fancy here.
Absolutely. And what I think was pretty cool for Yes I Can was his pistol rounds were so damn consistent. And he consistently was able to find picks thanks to that. And I think that if you're looking over to if you're looking to NAOS, finding a solution to Yes I Can's pistol rounds is going to be really damn hard to do.
I mean, both of the pistol rounds, he got 3K on each of them. The first one on a little bit of a wraparound, not really was able to catch players off guard. But, for the second one, it was just a head-to-head fight. He was able to just hit those headshots with precision. And speaking of headshots, another player for Fancy was Nizzy that I'd like to highlight, able to just pop off all of this being made possible, of course, by their newest member of the team, Killer. This trio was the one to really be terrified of, and now they had no real answer. Blurred did wake up a little bit towards the second half or towards the first half's end, but now they had three strong players today. All of the team, in fact, were phenomenal, but these three in particular, and Blurred, it was just a one-man show. He couldn't do more than that. Again, in this round, it was a 1v3. He gets two somehow, but not able to connect the third. And this was the consistent story, right? So many rounds now was they were just left on the back foot in the first 10 seconds of the round after they lost two or three of their key players, and they just could not bring it back after that. The momentum consistently sliding in Fancy's favor just propelled them forward to this 13-4 win.
Absolutely did. And let's be honest, 13-4 is a pretty bloody one-sided affair. We're going to Ascent next, of course, which is Fancy's map pick. If this is how they look on their opponent's map, what are they going to do on Ascent?
I genuinely don't know, because we did see them play it against Todak yesterday, and they put up quite a dominant showing. It was 13-7, I believe. And the one thing, again, it's the same point that you mentioned in the onset of this map, there is a little bit of footage for NAOS to possibly analyze. If they've done their homework, they might be able to pull it back and take it to a map 3. And NAOS, they are the only team from the SEA region that has successfully pulled off the reverse sweep so far in a best of 3, if I'm not wrong. So that is something that is going in their favor. But they have to also be mentally strong because, like you mentioned,
Yeah.
this is a very difficult defeat to really come back from. It's their map pick. They expected to win it, but they lost, and not just lost, but also lost in a very dominated fashion, for lack of a better word. So they're gonna have to really reset their mental before heading back into the next one.
Yes, they absolutely are. And we're going to see kind of these pistol rounds from Yes I Can. Just so damn good. Um, One thing I want to credit to NAOS is it looked like they were still willing to be aggressive. Despite being so far down, despite what would usually be quite a tilting game, they were really, really good at maintaining their composure and sort of sticking to their strat book when it comes to sort of these contact plays. They consistently got to sites. And I think that for Fancy, their retakes were good, sure. But in an ideal world, they wouldn't even be allowing us to get to these sites.
I mean, most of the times the retake was in a position of like a 2v4 or something. So yeah, you were right, sis. In fact, Suka in particular, we talked about how he would be enough to hold off Naos, but more than Suka himself, I think it was the threat of him that really kept them from going too fast on these sites. And of course, that initial aggression, just the fact that I think almost every single round on the defense, except for one, if I'm not wrong, it was Fancy being able to consistently get that first blood. And I think it was just a sweep at this point. I don't think they lost a single round on their defensive round, in fact.
I don't think they did. It was a really damn good game from them. And second, we'll take a look at the scoreboard, though. We'll be able to get sort of a good glimpse as to who was able to help craft that victory. And of course, Killers was one of the main hitters here. Equal in ACS with Yes I Can. Killers, to me, really woke up in sort of those final kind of 3 or 4 rounds. He really started to deliver. Yes I Can, of course, dominant starts. Second, he slows down. Killers is there to chime back in. So that wombo combo, absolutely perfect. And this is before we even go into the fact that Nizzy hasn't fully come online yet.
I mean, he didn't have a chance to. Yes, I can was just eating up the frags on most of these rounds. But for the side of NAOS, like we mentioned, Blur, he did his best. 285 ACS. He's gonna be up there with everybody else from the side of Fancy. But we talked about it before we went to this particular map, right? NAOS are a team that play as a team, they win as a team, and they lose as a team. And whenever they win, you see everybody popping off in particular. But this map, aside from Blur, it seemed like nobody had really gotten their coffee or really gotten out of bed yet. It was such a slow start, and by the time they managed to get a few rounds on their attacking half, they just by then it was just a little bit too late. Fancy, they're a very momentum based team. They tend to run away with it if you let them. If you give them an inch, they're gonna take a mile, and that's exactly what they did. They took it all the way to 13-4, and I don't know. It's looking very rough for it. I was heading into a sense because again, this is a map which Fancy they've proven to be very comfortable on, and they're looking at an uphill battle all the way to map number 3, Kermer.
Yep, they absolutely are. I actually don't think we're seeing a third map. I think this is probably going to be a fairly swift Fancy ordeal. Of course, now we go to Ascent. Fancy, they're going to their home ground. It's a map they were able to beat Todak on. And Todak, for me, are definitely one of the, if not the best full Malaysian teams there is. So certainly a good result to have sort of under your belt. And I think for now, this is where you really need to use this break to get some serious talks in to really make sure that you're not tilted to any degree, because it will be punished if you are.
I think, yeah, tilting is going to be a major thing because heading into that map in particular on Breeze itself, it looked like now they were having a little bit of trouble. You saw them taking peaks that aren't exactly very advisable, and both of these teams, they went for a lot of really flashless peaks, despite having a Phoenix and a KO.
Yeah.
A lot of the time they were just dry peaks, and for the side of Fancy, it was coming in from the confidence that they had, the lead that they had, and the fact that
Yeah.
they were able to just win all of these head-to-heads consistently. But for NAOS, I think the frustration was leaking out by the end of it.
Yeah, I think it may very well leak out in our pause as well. Going into Ascent, they need the pistol rounds. They need to be able to start showing some dominance. Otherwise, Fancy will run all over them, as they did on Breeze. In terms of speculation, I think that bear in mind that Fancy won both pistol rounds over on Breeze. I think if Fancy won both pistol rounds on Ascent as well, then this is a done series. If we can see some kind of sort of fast responses from the members of NAOS, maybe they're in with a chance.
I feel a little bit bad when when you asked me who exactly I think I would win. I feel like I've cursed Naos. They were performing so well on this on Breeze over the course of the last 2 days. But the moment I said, yeah, Naos, they just haven't had a very good time. So I'm just gonna shut up at this point. No more speculation from me. I'm not gonna be jinxing any of these either of these teams right now. But yeah, like you mentioned, Ascent, it is going to be a map that Fancy have proven to be consistently really good on. But as for the side of Naos, I wouldn't say they're really a slouch either on this particular one. I did mention their loss to Team Secret, but
Yeah.
in their own region, they managed to prove to be quite on the top on this particular map. And I think that before we head into Ascent, though, we are gonna be taking a short break. So not just these teams, but also we can regroup after that quick map that we just saw.
Yeah, absolutely right. We'll be back in just a moment with what is going to be now NAOS's chance and battle for survival.
Everybody get in line, sit back with the stars in line. I finesse like my life on the nine was a diamond in the rough, and now I shine.
No one could stop us, they'll try, but they won't. Nada nos puede parar. Oh no, we're wide awake now. Our eyes are wide open. We're running this world. We're keeping it turning. We're living like giants. Yeah, giants. We're bigger than giants. We're giants. Oh, sleeping giants. Sleeping giants. Yeah. Shutting it down. Been in the ground and my people all up in this place. Spinning this thing. Go to my rank. Royalty up in my veins. I'm loco, think I'm so cold. I say something, ain't no going back. Now they ask where Kiki's at. I'm like, you can't hang with that. 쏟아져 빛이 멀게 된 눈이 멈추지 않아. Once we go, 내게 넣은 날로 모든 배 빨리 달려. 넌 못 따라와. True damage we do it. True damage 보여줄게. 뭐든 쉽게. 이기든 지든 my crew make the beat. No one could stop us. They'll try, but they won't. Nada nos puede parar. Oh no, we're wide awake now. Our eyes are wide open. We're running this world. We're keeping it turning. We're living like giants. Yeah, giants. We're bigger than giants. We're giants. Cause not the way we're weak, but we coming right back. This time you're gonna see how we do it like that. We're living like giants. Yeah, giants. We're bigger than giants. We're giants. Oh, sleeping giants. Sleeping giants.
I keep on shattering time. I might just leave you behind. Homie, you stuck on rewind. You just quit sleeping on mine. You got your back on recline. When I damage your delicate spine, please don't act.
Welcome back to the LG Ultragear TEC Challenger Series VCT off-season event, powered by Amazon India, our GPU partner of Zotac Gaming, our gaming partner of Intel, and our memory and storage partner of Crucial. This is followed by our laptop partner of Asus, and of course our broadcast partners over at Loco. All of them absolutely wonderful people who have made this all possible. We just saw Fancy do something incredible against NAOS, taking Breeze 13-4 with a curveball pick of the Phoenix. We now move to Fancy's map pick of Ascent, and I can't help but feel a little bit worried for NAOS. Of course, I'm your caster Chroma 3. I'm joined by the amazing Zach. How are you feeling going into Ascent?
I like you mentioned, I'm feeling very worried for Naos because this is a single elimination bracket. There is no second chance for them to really redeem themselves if they lose. They're just going to be out of the tournament. But yeah, looking at this is going to be Fancy's pick. We saw them not really dominate, but put up a very strong showing against Todak on this particular map. And I think there too, we did see that Phoenix pick coming in, and it definitely seems like Yes I Can is in full form, for lack of a better phrase. It's double duelist combo from him and Nizzy, finding incredible value, and of course killers on the KO as well. These three are just a set combo that Naos have had so much trouble answering in the previous game, but on Ascent, if they're not able to do that, that's going to be the end for them. So yeah, very concerned for them.
The one player who was able to be like almost a beacon of light for the members of NAOS was, of course, Blurred. He finished that game being the only player above 10 kills, and actually he finished that game almost top fracking the server, going 17-13 on that chamber. So he really is a man you got to keep an eye on. And of course, on Ascent, a map where we do see chambers, I'm interested to see if Blurred can keep that consistency. And maybe if he can, is he going to be the one to sort of lead NAOS from the front here?
I mean, I was watching yesterday's match where Fancy were playing against Todak, and it's very interesting to note that they did not really go in for a Sentinel pick at all. Instead, focusing on that aggression, focusing on being able to constantly find that first pick, whether they're on attack or defense. We did see a taste of that in Breeze as well, so we might be seeing a repeat of that if they go in for the same comp. But as for Naos, so far they've been running again a very traditional, very stable comp. They like to go in for that Jet as their duelist pick, the double initiator pick as well, the KO and the Fade coming in, and of course the Chamber from Blurred. Like you mentioned, he was the only one who really seemed to be popping off for them on that last map. The rest of the team, they're gonna have to shake themselves, get in gear, and show up, because otherwise Nawas are going to be out if they lose a sense. But Fancy, like I mentioned, they're a team that thrives on aggression, thrives on on momentum, and now they're heading in with Breeze under their belts. What do you think about Nawas' chances here, Kramer?
They're not great, but they still have a chance. And I don't think we can rule them out completely. But for yes, I can on that Phoenix. That's a confidence boost to go for the curveball agent to then make that curveball work to such a lethal degree is certainly going to make me worry. Now, both of us predicted Fancy to win the series. I was listening to 2 maps. You said 3. I'm going to stick to my guns. I think this probably will be a 2-map affair. But don't get me wrong, Blurred played bloody well on Breeze, regardless of the scoreline. So I think that if Blurred can find a stride, going to a 3rd map is most definitely an option.
I think that he has already found a stride. Like you mentioned, yes, he is going to be pivotal heading into this, because Blurred, he is sort of that player, the star player for the side of Naos. But I think for a sense, it's going to be, like I mentioned, every single player who has to show up. But we've talked a little bit about the agents that we might be seeing. Let's see if that is going to be the case. And again, you can see, yes, I can just hovering over that Phoenix. Oh no, I'm terrified for Naos. As for them, though, they're going to be switching it up a little bit. Their usual comp, with the exception of Blurred, who is going to be moving over from the Chamber to the Killjoy. And this is very interesting, because Chamber, when you look at him as a Sentinel, he's a very aggressive Sentinel. He is able to just absolutely find value with his weaponry. But I think on multiple rounds, his utility was being shut down by killers and his KO. And I think because of that Killjoy, you are allowed to play a little bit more away from that 0 point being connecting. You are going to be able to play off your utility as well. I think that might be something to watch out for heading into this particular one.
Yeah, I'm interested to see how that Killjoy is going to fare. Yes, it gives you that delay potential, and yes, if you know your lineups and your Storm Graves, you can actually ruin that Phoenix when he comes out of his run it back. But that's very situational, and I don't know if Blurred is the one who should be or should be catering to the counter pick. I feel like Blurred's Chamber was good enough to just leave him on it. I'm really interested to see how this is going to fare now, especially against Fancy, who are just going to fall back to the same comp, which, let's be honest, worked pretty damn well for them.
I mean, talking about Killjoy as a pick in general, on a sense, she used to be the most picked Sentinel before this recent buff came into the KO, and now you know that it's Fragment. He has lineups that can go through walls and just take care of that lockdown from the opposite side of the wall. So that's going to make retaking the sites incredibly difficult with the help of the pizza util, unless of course they manage to take killers out. So the Killjoy pick, you see it going down increasingly after that patch came in. So that's going to make things very difficult. I don't understand this pick coming in, considering how well Blurred did play on that Chamber and how consistently well he's been popping off on that particular agent as well. But for the side of Fancy, like you mentioned, yes, I can and Nizzy, they've both been able to really pop off there. And if they can continue to do so, I think I would have to agree with you. It is going to be just 2 maps that we're going to be seeing. Though I would never count Naos out. They did again against their series, in their series against South Build. They lost 2-13, even worse than this, and they were able to pull back. They were able to like re-engage and find an inner strength to really push it to map number 3 and take it home. So there is a possibility. I'm not gonna say it's really high, but it's still there at the end of the day for Naos, and I would never count them out.
You're absolutely right, and because of that, I think that with the Killjoy, they need their defense to be what works for them. In the same way that Fancy needed their attack to carry them through Breeze, these guys need their defense to carry them through. Now, luckily for them, I believe they are starting on the defense, so they are going to have that comfort of allowing that Killjoy to be the one to really set the tone, set the pace of this. But as we get into the game, we'll have to see how that fans out. No more speculation for us. We're jumping straight into the action with Fancy United Esports going up against NAOS Esports in our 2nd map. Remember, with no lower brackets, it is do or die for NAOS here.
Yeah, and again, they're already down one map, so they're definitely feeling the pressure. The Killjoy is going to be set up towards this A side, a very inside setup. Usually you do see a toaster oven layout towards that tree area, but this time around it's going to be all for site, and this might be for the best, because considering how the KO usually likes to go. But it does look like it's going to be off the back, a little bit of aggression shown towards this mid area, towards short as well. The knife 0 point not going to really be able to find much value, though the Prowler does with the help of that dash. It is going to be Mojo staying alive. Does get flashed and spotted out. The Haunt as well from the side of NAOS, giving away so much information as to the number of players towards this B, succumbing for this B side here. But that smoke, as well as that, the players falling back here is going to slow down the push a little bit from Fancy, though really, it's only a matter of seconds in my opinion.
It is, and having got that mid control, Fancy have just gone completely quiet. They want NAOS to overextend. They want to be able to punish them here. Kakarot's spotted by Nizzy, but that dagger isn't going to be able to suppress anyone. With market control now being teased, the only option now for NAOS is to pick one of these angles of attack and then push it. They choose to push main, they're running into Nizzy to see what he can do.
Oh no, he isn't able to really fight anything as the two players, their swing is too much for him to contend with. He's caught a little bit off guard, and just like that, it seems like Fancy, they're going to be pushing towards his B instead. A headshot coming in from Mojo there is going to bring the Phoenix down to really low HP, and now with B main control established as well, things are looking very difficult for the side of these players from NAOS, but from Fancy, but as I say, that is going to be VCO finding that first pick. The trades are quick though, and with 3 remaining players for Fancy, they have to try and get this retake done. Yes, I can though. Despite his low HP, still able to find one. Gets a second as well, and it's all down to just him. And the late lurk coming in. The right click is too much, and the defuse, it's going to be stuck because VCO is going to be late to the party here, Krover.
Yeah, absolutely will be. VCO swings out, can't quite cancel the defuse. Blurred gets that killing blow, and with that, NAOS is going to be able to shut them down.
You did say that if they get the pistol, it's going to be good for them.
Yeah, it is. I'm actually very impressed with them, considering that this was a must-win circumstance, you know, for now. Start your map strong. You desperately needs that that nagging thought in the back of Fancy's mind to say that actually NAOS could still fight back. If they'd lost this, I would be really worried about the big turnabout of confidence.
Off the back of that, they are going to be able to invest in this particular round here. You do see some, I think I saw an Ares as well coming in from Blurred, so he's going to be playing aggressively, but then tries to go in for the peak. The turret being broken is going to give away a little bit of information, though the wallbang not going to be connecting quite with the players of Fancy, who are stacked 3, I believe, towards main. A bit of a default coming in from everybody else. You do see somebody waiting towards mid, possibly for a rotation, of course. The usual lurk coming in towards that east side. Right now, though, NAOS, they're not getting really aggressive here. G will be able to spot out one, gets that pick as well, and just like that, NAOS, they're gonna be at the advantage here, at least when it comes to manpower. Mojo as well, though, is aware of the possibility the lurk will spot the shoulder of the Omen, and just like that, there's gonna be the crossfire and B to watch out for here. Nizzy able to find one with the help of the Sheriff. Blur, though, still anchoring the site, still able to get that pick. It's all gonna come down to the Omen here. What can he find? What can he do?
One kill here would be great, right? Just one kill. Unfortunately, Kakarot won't allow him to. Now, so they go 2-0 up. Remember, that was an eco, so for Fancy, it's not the end of the world. And what I quite like for now, in keeping 4 players alive, you do now have that big presence going into this third round or a bonus. With only a ghost on one of your players as well, you're really starting to rake in that cash. Interestingly enough, for Fancy, do we see them try and bring out the attacking knob? No, we don't. What they are close to, though, is one of the first run-it-backs from Yes I Can. I believe on Breeze, considering it was a fairly quick map, I think he had about 6 run-it-backs available over the course of that map. So he really likes farming up this ability. When he has it, we've seen he's got a lot of mileage from these ults, something he may be able to do now with what's going to be a bit of aggression through mid into the members of NAOS.
Yeah, NAOS, they have taken A control, but, you know, I've noticed that Fancy, they don't really like going towards that side. exception of the lurk coming in. They like this market B push it, but so far it hasn't really quite worked out for them. With this full buy kicking in, perhaps it might be the advantage that they need. I'm so sorry, I got distracted there for a bit. But you know, there is a little bit of an investment from NAOS as well. I think I saw a Vandal on G, if I'm not wrong. So that might be what they need to possibly pull this round through. One hero rifle, one kill, that completely can cause a round to fall apart. And DG watching to see if anybody has come their way into spawn quite yet. Not going to find anything. The turret being broken is going to alert Blur to the fact as well that there is still presence towards B main. But these remaining players from Fancy, three of them in fact are going to be gonna be coming towards this market area, possibly waiting for a smoke to replenish before they push through, and that is going to be the case. The CT smoke is invested, so is the C's, and just like that, they're gonna be hitting this B side quick as hell.
This C's there may be punished there. NDG able to get to stairs, and that may be a huge stack now available for this B side. The executions doesn't come through yet. The Ares trying to give suppressive fire, but every single member's being caught out one at a time. They drop like flies. Blurred alone back sight. It's killers elsewhere to catch out the rotation. Suka getting flow. Fancy. What an execution. They just put their foot down, and now they don't know how to respond. Bear in mind, that was a stacked site. So losing a stacked site, even when your buy is relatively strong, that actually worries me a little bit, Zach. I won't lie.
It worries me too, because like you mentioned, 3 players on site, but they weren't really holding a crossfire. You did see, I believe it was Mojer looking to get a little bit aggressive. I think that G as well as Blur were watching the same angle as well, so that made things even more difficult. But now it is going to be the buy coming in for both of these teams, with the exception of G, who is going to be forced to play with the Sheriff. Finally, this A side is going to be where the action is at. Already though, there is a lurk towards Vines, but Mojer, he peeks too soon, not quite able to find the value. The run it back. Kakarot going huge, able to find 2 kills on the swing and still staying alive, barely taking any damage. Will have the null command ready to go as well. And suddenly, what looked like a really bad start for the side of NAOS is brought back into a favorable position. All of the heroics of this one player, Kakarot, who is still anchoring this A side here.
It feels like a lot of this has just brought it back to equilibrium. It hasn't given them the huge advantage you would expect from a 3k spray down. Because let's say 3k, it did shut down the Phoenix ult, though, as one of the casualties of that. And now as they back off, Fancy United, they set their gaze back to mid, where they're going to be running into the Omen. Fisio is going to be the man to defend it, but Fisio, for the most part, is being relatively passive, not wanting to overextend when you already have that man advantage.
Yeah, Wukong though able to catch NDG, who gets a little bit too comfortable, I would say. But yet again, Fancy, they're running it down to the wire here. 30 seconds left on the clock. 2 players on site for them to contend with. It's going to make things difficult right now. You do see towards the main, the presence being shown. Nizzy taking quite a bit of damage. The crossfire trying to be held with G. He's not going to be able to quite do it. The off angle is perfect though. And Nizzy still connects the shot. It's all done just Blurred here in this 1v3. Spots out. 1 gets that pick. 2 left to find. Gets the shoulder of the other as well, with the swing from Killers is too much for him to contend with. And Fancy, they find the second, and off the back of that are going to be pushing NAOS into an eco, if I'm not wrong.
You would think that after such an effective start from Kakarot, and with only about 30 seconds left, and now set that round under wraps, but it's an instant shutdown from Fancy United, a bloody good response. And now as you look at the ults from both teams, null commands available. Nizzy 1 from a Blade Storm, Suka 1 from a Nightfall, as is G from his own Nightfall, which means that the retake prowess, that will see too much of it this round, but next round when there's a full buy available for NAOS is definitely going to be there. But unfortunately, dropping to the Sheriffs means that you'll risk foregoing that lead now to Fancy, a team which you tried desperately to keep the momentum from, then bringing out the Killjoy.
Yeah, again though, you can see Xerxia just farming these orbs, trying to get that run it back as soon as possible. The A side has been completely left open for this retake here. They are showing presence right now towards A, and look at Nizzy on the lurk, ready for the push coming out. Though now with this time around, they're not biting. It is going to be just a quick execute, or not really a quick execute, but rather a push coming through, or never mind, he's just waiting. I don't know what he's waiting for. The side is empty, but I guess, you know, we know it as our observer is giving us the goods here. for the side of Fancy, they are opting to be a little bit more careful about this eco round, despite it being an eco round, of course. VCO on the lurk, will be caught out, finds one, but Mojer is there for the trade. Things back down to a 4v4. Nizzy, though, on this flank, will be caught out. Okay, this suddenly looks like a round that's a little bit more doable right now, because the upgrade has been picked up. Suka will be forced to invest that Nightfall to try and get more space and get some more information as to how many players are towards the CT. In fact, all the ults from the side of Fancy are going to be invested to make sure that this round gets converted, and they do. But think about it, Kremer. That was an eco from NAOS, and I think they're going to be pretty happy about it because they baited out both the null command as well as the Nightfall from Fancy here.
You're absolutely right. And what I quite like for Moya as well is a really, really smart play to be able to catch out the player lurking, watching the flank, and then have the vigilance to peek defender attacker spawn as well. And it rewarded with that and going 2 players up. And as you mentioned, they bait out that null command, they bait out that Nightfall. Yes, Fancy still have a Blade Storm, and they're about to get from the shadows as well, but they're not the kind of these big sculpting ultimates like that Nightfall, while the rest of Fancy set themselves up for some pretty swift mid control. Now have a plethora of abilities to rely upon, and even a big scary sniper.
Yeah, the operator coming online was something I was watching out for. This time on Mojo, we didn't see much of it last map because they really had the economy modes in these rounds. However, though, the quick PXQ comes in, but now it is going to be Blurred picking up the most reviled weapon in Valorant's history. The Odin already finding 2 on the round, but Fixtures able to trade it out. The third as well. It is just going to be Blurred, blurring lines with the action here on that Odin. Knows as well that Nizzy is possibly going to be towards the main angle. Nizzy, though, is able to find one, but is going to be immediately traded out, and that is going to be finally a round coming in for the side of NAOS here. But what a hole is coming in from Blurred, just able to swing at the perfect time off the back of the Qs being given by his utility, and just connecting these kills one by one. And this Nightfall as well, this backup coming in from his teammate, that was phenomenal. That's because that completely deafened the players from Fancy, and they had no idea that they were walking into what they were there.
Yeah, and I think the final sort of nail in the coffin for that execution was that Paranoia. Absolutely perfect from now. So what it means for Fancy is that instantly lose 2 players on the execution. The other one's trapped at main and can't swing because of the storm grenades. And this is where we start seeing the effectiveness of bringing out that Killjoy on Blurred. 3-3 the scoreline, and we're starting to really get into some deep strategies if both teams wanting to really make a big attempt to close out this map here. For now, it's for survival. For Fancy, it's for comfort. And with a timeout called from Fancy, we'll see if anything comes out of the back of this, see what the fruits are going to be bore from this timeout. And I think with a Blade Storm available, I would quite like to see it used in quite an aggressive manner, something which they sort of shied away from a bit on Fancy.
I mean, last game we did see Nizzy finding a 4K off of that particular ult, but so far they haven't found the need for it because economically they've been quite healthy. I don't think we're going to be seeing it this round either, unless, of course, Nizzy's in a tight spot and wants to go for that quick right click. But yeah, looking at the ultimates available for NAOS, they are going to be holding on to both that null command as well as that lockdown. It might be what they need to facilitate that retake, because we talked about how that Killjoy ult is vulnerable to so much utility, but if you don't have utility to worry about, well, that's just going to be a free retake available. Mojer again with the operator able to swing out, dashes away, but yes I can, still connects the kill. And off the back of that pick, they are going to be aggressive towards the B area, market area instead. Is he able to find one, but they don't check. NDG here was able to find the lurk, gets both of those kills, and it's all down to just the fade. Their position is going to be known with the help of that Prowler running for their life into sight. I think they do have the spike, so they are going to be trying to close out this 1v3, but lying in wait with the Odin here. You really don't want to walk into that particular weapon's crosshairs. Again, he's just playing the mind games here, jiggling back and forth, trying to isolate these duels desperately. Suka trying to find some space to work himself. In fact, gets them, able to get 1 kill, but that Odin is just going to tear through that box and find the fade and the last kill. But again, this is where the round completely changed in my opinion, Kremer. NDG just being able to wrap around this Phoenix wall, going unchecked, that was devastating for them.
It absolutely was. I think the silver lining for Fancy is that they're forcing a reinvestment of the operator. And you look at NAOS' money, it's not great, all things considered. Losing this round, I think they just about afford a buy, but even then it's going to be laboured. So they are still keeping NAOS' money honest, but their own economy is taking a beating. Out comes the Blade Storm, I imagine, from Fancy with that Spectre, as well as having a fair few other abilities to work with. Moya could be in danger and White here potentially trapped, able to get away. And this is with, I think, the 3rd time in a row they've been able to pick this KO.
Here.
Yeah, they've also managed to get that. I think that Mojer in these last few rounds has been huge, being able to consistently get that first blood for the side of NAOS there, and that is proving to be huge because it completely, like, when you have a key piece of your kit missing, that KO killers in particular, we saw how effective he was in setting up the Jet and the Phoenix. When he's missing, you're just gonna be facing so much difficulty, really making this execute work. However, though, Fancy, they're gonna be taking an approach that we haven't quite seen yet from them. They do at least go for a little bit of short control. Perhaps we're going to be seeing an A split coming in, but in the meantime, it is going to be SICAN fishing towards mid, possibly trying to give away a little bit of false information that, yeah, you know what, we've been hitting B for all this time. We're going to be going in for the market instead, but this false impression is immediately going to be shut down with the information from that Prowler. That is going to let them know that there are people on A short. The Phoenix ult does come through with the help of the one-way. A lot of damage is done, but nevertheless, the skill connects to, in fact, for Yes I Can. And yes, he can indeed, because that is going to lay open the A side almost completely, with the exception of Mojo. No one's there, but the Barrel's going to be spotted out. Dizzy gets the kill with the shorty. Just 2 players left right now, and they have to make this retake work.
Yeah, friend, they do have a lockdown there, but from the shadows, I'll be very surprised if they can limit the lockdown to this. There just isn't enough players to follow it up. For Nizzy in main, they do commit it. I don't like that at all. Nightfall is going to be used. NDG, I don't think, has been seen with this, though. Blurd certainly has. Blurd just guarding his lockdown generator. But look at the flank now. That's Vigard from the Phoenix, who's going to head straight up from short. Nizzy in the smoke, caught out by NDG. That's going to betray the position of the remaining members. That spike being stuck, though. PCO good for the first. And Matsuka chiming in. That lockdown is all for naught. I do not like that lockdown usage, Zach, I won't lie.
I mean, it was a difficult situation, but I think that if the spike had started to get diffused just a little bit earlier, that might have been the round that they really needed, because there was so much of a delay. In fact, it only started to like be tapped after the lockdown got completed. Like, look at this. That's when it actually started to get diffused. And the thing is that they had no post plant really available to work with. All the players were pushed off of site. There was no lurk available, and I think now was if they had just been able to stick the spike, that could have been the round they needed. But I don't think Blur was able to get off the site in time. But in this particular round, a quick aggressive push coming in, since it is an eco for the side of NAOS here. Already both players of push out are going to be going down. Kakarot as well is going to be dinked to make things worse, and the flank is going to be caught out as well. It's all up to just these last two, Blurred and Kakarot, and I don't really fancy the last two remaining. Oh,
they need it. Yes, I can. Brings out the 3k with that fancy hit 5. I quite like how quick that round was. Remember, it was still just an eco for now, so you get it out the way, you move back to your full weapons, and you just kind of retain a little bit of momentum. Looking at the ults, though, from the shadows of both teams, these from the shadows ults, they're so situational. I don't know a good circumstance in which we're going to be seeing them used, unless it's for a quick rotation, potentially to get the spike to the other site. For the time being, it's going to have to be the gunplay that's really going to allow either Fancy to extend this lead or give NAOS a chance to start biting at their heels.
Again, though, Mojer, he's going to be settling himself down into that particular angle that he's going to be playing. Unfortunately, the dash does not work out, but he still gets the pick. Gets 2, in fact, somehow staying alive. Connects the 3rd as well. Mojer, how are you doing this? That's going to be the real question here, as they managed to find 3 already. The spike is going to be dropped as well. So these last 2 players from Fancy, not only are they at a huge manpower disadvantage, they also just don't have the spike, and they can't even rotate over to this B side. However, though, now it is going to be, I believe, Blurred, aware of the possibility that there is a player who has pushed in, does manage to find the headshot, even though he doesn't have the Odin this time around, and it's all down to just PCO here to try and close out this 1v4. Never mind, that's just gonna be a 0v4 as he goes down. And of course, Mojer in that particular round, so impactful, despite being cleared out by that fragment, and despite that dash not quite working out in his favor, he just pulls it back and finds 3 somehow. I do not know how he was allowed to find 3 there by Fancy, but he capitalizes fully.
I don't know how I feel about now sort of punishing this aggression from Fancy. Bear in mind, Moya, he was seized, he was hit by the fragments, and he didn't have a teammate. It was one of the first casualties. There's no response. No, Moya's dead there. You don't get away with that. It feels like that was a big blunder on Fancy's part, and for both teams here, it's those small mistakes which is going to be what wins this map, considering how closely matched they are at the moment.
They They definitely are. It's head-to-head right now, neck and neck between these two teams. A quick B execute is going to be coming around. They're completely changing the momentum and the pacing of this particular round here. And unfortunately, it seems like it's working out for the side of... never mind, I take it back. Blurred is still alive. Blurred is still ticking, doing damage right now. And as he manages to hold on and buy time, the rest of NAOS, they swoop in. And just like that, they managed to win the round. But, you know, I thought it was done for Kramer because the last time we saw this kind of stack, players immediately going down, it did not go too well for NAOS. But Blurred finds practically a collab there, if I'm not wrong. And off the back of that, they win the round. Both teams will have the economy heading into this. But looking at the ultimates for the side of NAOS, they're just one away from that lockdown. And I like this timeout from NAOS because they want to make sure they don't mess things up. And they want to close out this half as dominantly as possible here.
You're absolutely right. I like the fact that ending the half on a timeout as well means you go into this final round with a little bit of confidence. You're able to come out with some new strategies. For Fancy, they're starting to be shut down. I think now they're really starting to punish how aggressive Fancy are trying to be by tucking themselves into corners, sort of hiding backside, and then they're just swinging all at once. And it's working beautifully now. They've really found their rhythm and their rhyme. The issue I have with this is, with the Killjoy, how effective can they be on their attack? But that's a question for later. Yeah, if they can end this half 7-5 in the lead, they're swimming. They're in a great position to try and force us to bind. However, they need this final round.
Yeah, I mean, something that has really been working out for NAOS is something that worked out for Fancy as well on Breeze. This initial aggression, like constantly you see A control being fought for by Kakarot and Mojer, and so far they've been doing a stellar job at holding it down in these last few rounds there. Yet again, it does seem like they are gonna be put to the test here. Again on this A side, because you do see 3 players stacked up. For the side of Fancy though, they are going to be trying to get that orb, try to get that Phoenix ult online yet again. And yes, I can. He's been performing on this map as well. They're going to be heading aggressively. In fact, we'll spot out multiple players, but it's going to be a little bit too late. The Haun's coming in, and it's going to be the first pick coming in. In fact, for Fancy here, the trade back is there, but nevertheless, it is going to be the man advantage remaining in the hands of these Fancy players right now. However, look at the rotation coming in now.
That they are. Down to the 4 versus 3, and for NAOS, I can't help but think that it's a fairly passive setup. I would like to see a follow-up on short here, potentially a bid to retake mid. For Fantasy, for the time being, though, it's a slow list over to this B site, where the Killjoy is going to be inviting them into her loving arms of cuts, robots, and also turrets. Trust me, it's more comfy than it looks. As we'll have to see how Blurred is going to be able to dispatch of these attackers. Blurred, for me, I was a bit worried when he go to the Killjoy. To be honest, he's having a really good half.
I mean, Fancy, they do have the null command to work with. That might be what they need to shut Blurred down, and indeed that is the case. You can see how the man just switches over to the Odin as quickly as possible, trying to do damage at the very least. And man, is he hitting hard right now? You see the updraft, in fact, being used to try and get it to the side. 2 players for Fancy are going to be incredibly low, just 1 bullet away from their demise. And if Blurred can get 1 pick, it's going to be huge. He's going to have that lockdown available right now. That Nightfall tried to invest it to try and slow this retake down, but in the meantime, Kakarot, he has to clear out the logs here, otherwise things are going to be looking very rough for them. Never mind though, the information from the Haunt is good, and off the back of that, they are able to find these crucial picks. Things are going to be back down to a 2v2, and guess who has this lockdown? It's going to be none other than Blurred. He might not even be able to, he doesn't need to use it though, because the 2 players remaining, not Blurred, sorry, Kakarot, he does have the ult almost available, doesn't need it though, quite as they do retake the side off the back of that Nightfall, with just enough time to defuse the spike as well. As NAOS, they find it not really intimidating, but definitely a lead at least in this defensive half, 7-5.
That was a phenomenal retake from NAOS there, and for Blurred, he does his job, right? His job being just delay. And even on the attack, you know, you force them to use their updrafts. Only 1 player was able to cross. What it meant, actually, with only 1 player being able to cross, because no one else wanted to risk going through the Odin spray, it meant that when they actually did end up assaulting those positions, for instance, logs, lane, and main, what it meant is that there was only 2 players who could be isolated, then you could focus on the next 2. And what was initially a 4 versus 3 ended up becoming 2 3v2s, which the members of NAOS were able to punish beautifully. That was on top of a magnificent haunt from the Fade, and you end up with a really well-crafted retake.
I think one of the sort of blunders they made in that particular round, Fancy made in that round, was that they had two players towards main initially, but one of them did try to get a little bit aggressive, breaking that crossfire and settling in logs. And instead of holding two separate crossfires, one towards main and one towards side, they, like you mentioned, gave them isolated fights, and that completely shifted the tide of the round. And you talked about it before this round started, right? You were talking about what exactly a Killjoy can do. Well, so as somebody who mains the agent myself, I gotta tell you, there are lineups, and what am I forgetting? Ah, yes, lineups.
A lot of lineups, but in order to actually make those lineups effective, you need to get to those sites. And I think that for the members of Fancy, this is probably going to be quite an aggressive defense, especially with that Phoenix. And something to highlight is that Yes I Can has had very little impact on that Phoenix comparative to how good he was on Breeze. And I think that so now, if you use this break between maps to find that weakness and just start exploiting it and just start giving him less and less space to work with, and for Yes I Can, suddenly it gets a little bit worrying now.
Yeah, I mean, he's still on the top of the leaderboard, if I'm not wrong, for his
Yes, yeah, he
particular
is.
team. He is popping off, able to find those first picks. But, somebody who didn't really show up on that first map has woken up, and that is going to be no one other than Mojer on this map. Again, on that A side, able to find so much value. 3 consecutive rounds with that operator, finding the first blood, then switches over to the Vandal, and still able to pop off. I think that he is the key piece that now is really missing on Breeze. Because, on Breeze, on attack, that Jet needs to find value, needs to find impact, has to get that first pick, has to create space, and Mojer wasn't able to do any of that. But on a sense, he looks like a whole new player. And on this attacking half, if he continues what he's been doing over the course of this defense, that might be what NAOS needs to push this to map number 3.
Yeah, and it could very well be that. And as we now sort of ask the question of do we see map 3, I think if NAOS actually forces us to a third map, the confidence may be there. The confidence may be there to take it. For now, though, let's not jump too far ahead because we do still have the second half on our hands, with NAOS moving to their attack and Fancy moving to their defense. Remember, Zach, this is the elimination match. Remember, for NAOS, they lost map 1. This is the last possible half in which they could keep themselves alive in this tournament. They need to make it good. They need to make it count. For Fancy, there is still that leeway of a map's advantage, but they too need to win this series, or they too will be going home.
Yeah, I definitely think NAOS haven't forgotten that, because they've definitely come back stronger from what we saw from them on Breeze here. So looking at the setup, again, this is something that I mentioned heading into this particular map here. Fancy, they don't really run a Sentinel on this particular map. They like to play aggressive. They like to go in for those high information, high risk plays, and if it pays off, it pays off. But NAOS, you're looking to be informed right now. We did see that coming in Breeze as well, and NAOS did not have an answer, and they need to be able to answer that kind of thing coming in right now. You do see a 3-person stack coming in towards this B side, a push as well from these players, and that is going to buy them a little bit of information that there's nobody towards B main. It's probably going to be A or mid where the hit is coming in, and that smoke invested by the Omen as well as the utility coming in will give the game away that A is going to be where the execute is in. But a lot of utility has been committed by these players from NAOS as they get their way onto the side through the smoke, though Nizzy is able to find one pick, will fall back. That default plant position not exactly working out as the door hasn't quite been closed yet. That KO going down is going to be huge for Fancy there.
It removes a lot of info gather, and it also removes the slow potential with that dagger. So now that Fancy have a man advantage, that door's almost broken as well. They are just waiting for everyone to stack up before they can probably destroy it. They dive into this site. Point blank.
Oh, no.
Moya, good for 2. This is from Heaven. This is followed up by the push onto site now, but it's an absolute collapse. We're witnessing a slaughter. It's all onto Yes I Can. 1 versus 4. Good for 2. Remember, there's no HP on both remaining players. It's something that Yes I Can potentially exploit. Dive straight into the Killjoy, but it's just not enough. Look at the HP! 1! The Jess, I believe, is also on just a thimbles full of HP. That was heartbreakingly close. And I don't think Yes I Can knows the extent of how close that was.
Oh my god, if he had been able to find Blurred there, that would have meant everything. But Blurred, like we mentioned, one of those players that just doesn't miss if you do give him a clean shot, and in that case he had one. So that's going to be a great round coming in from NAOS. And again, despite them being 1 player down, they were able to just lock down the side with multiple crossfires coming in, and of course that aggressive play by Moe towards Heaven that was able to find 2 somehow. The Frenzy just ripping them to shreds, for lack of a better phrase. And yet again, though, the A side is going to be where they want to hit, but look at this, it's going to be a 4-stack Tremor on this particular side here.
Absolutely right. Now, it's a well-placed stack. Will it be able to stop them? There's a swing from Mo. Yep, it's just, oh, it's so messy. He's punished for it. Now the Spectre goes to the hands of Killers, and he just charges through the members of NAOS. Low HP on the Jets and the Phoenix, but that won't matter. NAOS, they've had enough. They want to go home. There's a kid bullying me in the playgrounds. I just want out. They set themselves back to B. But for Fancy, I think at this point, by process of elimination, they know this B site is next up on the docket as they look to move like a mob, like a juvenile gang of thieves. They look to steal around. They had no business in winning.
Yeah, you also do see that Yes I Can picks up that additional Spectre, so now it's going to be 2 players from NAOS going up against 4, of whom 2 have Spectres and the others have Sheriff. So it's looking like a very, very rough round right now for them. However, though, 2 players are low, but so is Blurred, and there is going to be no utility really committed either. NAOS, they have no information to work with. They don't know that all 4 of Fancy's players are going to be coming in through this main area. Now, however, Fancy, they don't know exactly the position of NAOS, so it's going to be a zero-sum game here. Kakarot swings out, is able to spot one with a flash, tries to isolate the fights here, but it is going to be the Haunt that catches him off guard. Blurred, though, is able to chime and get one of his own. There is going to be the 2v2 right now. They bring it back. Yes, I can. Trying to stick the defuse here, but Kakarot gets one. It's all down to just the Phoenix again. The timer is low as well, and what looked like an impossible round for NAOS there is going to be brought back from the brink by these 2 players, but Kremer, that should not have gotten as close as it was. And even Kakarot, look at the HP on this man. He has like 4 or 5 left, a single digit. That was devastating. And the thing to consider is, even though they won that, the damage done, their bonus round, the next round, they're gonna have to buy in.
I can't help but think that round was so badly handled by NAOS. It feels like that was actually Fancy's round to lose, despite going into it with nothing. Like, actually nothing. It was just classics. But now the full buy comes out from both teams, and as you can see from the state of the economy, because 4 players died, there is no bonus here. There is no chance for NAOS to rest on their laurels a little bit. And for Fancy, off the back of such a successful eco, it's some fairly heavy aggression in mid, with Killers looking to be the one to strike the first blow onto NAOS.
Yeah, he was a serial killer last time, being able to get that first pick up that Spectre and just go ballistic there. But again, they are going to be moving over to that B side. They want nothing to do with that KO, Kremer. They just won't want anything. But in the meantime, Yes I Can, he's going to be walking down mid, does have this pivotal position towards Link there. So if they do decide to go in for a market split, they have to clear this out. Mojer, though, does seem aware of the possibility that there is a little bit of a push coming in from that mid area. That 0 points as well. Not going to find any real information for these players from Fancy, though they are aware with the help of the Prowler that there is presence towards B, certainly. And with half the timer being run out, it does look like that lockdown is going to be invested, and NAOS, they're looking towards a B push here.
Some aggression now, as Moya is going to be able to go for a deep dive into Boathouse, and there's no response from Fancy. It's a retake setup for sure. I don't know how I feel about going for a retake setup when you're 9-5 down, when you're on your first buy rounds, and you don't have any ults to aid you in this retake setup. Yes I Can is now going to have a run it back to a system, so I guess that's a cheeky way to prove me wrong, but the premise I think still stands here. With all 4 players set up on this site, trying to break in is going to be really damn difficult.
Run it back is for once not going to find any value. Izzy, however, will. The trade is quick though, and it's going to come down to a 3v3 right now. G still holding strong, and in the meantime, these NAOS players are doing their utmost to run down the timer. Wukong finding one as well is going to make things rough. It's all down to the KO here. Not gonna, it does in fact click onto Wukong, gets both picks. Kakarot saves the round for NAOS and converts. Well, it's not really a bonus, but gets the 3rd in a row on their attacking half. And again, I think one thing that you pointed out is it's not really, the retakes haven't been working out so far for Fancy, because they take just a little bit too long to even start it. With 45 seconds left, you do want to like hold on and try and at least, you want to be ready to take it in 45 seconds, right? You don't want to be caught on the back foot like that. And constantly in these last 2 rounds, they just haven't had the time, even if they've been able to find the kills.
What I'd like to see now swing around with someone with more than 1 player left with more than 30 HP. because so far it's been about 60 HP total over the remaining 3 rounds. As we also highlight, of course, in our off-stream match, E-Star Esports versus Goblin Attackers after map 1 on Haven. E-Star won at 13-5. We're currently on Ascent with E-Star 7-0 up against Goblin Attackers. E-Star having a bloody good series right now, but we have a bloody good series right here. And that's Fancy United now significantly up against the wall against NAOS.
Yeah, the economy not looking too great right now for Fancy, and now as they found double digits, they found the momentum, and Moir in particular has woken up on this particular map. That is, he is the agent that they really needed on Breeze, and he's finally going to be active. But yet again, it is going to be now looking towards his A side, not knowing that it is yet again a 4-person stack coming in from Fancy. A little bit more utility invested this time around on the execute. The Haunt, the Paranoia, everything in tandem being thrown towards these players on site. Haunt in particular finding so much information right now as they make their way onto site. Moir dashes in, but manages to find a pick before being taken down. But again, with the information that has been got, they are considering going for the rotate instead, heading into it short instead. They're trying to pick a fight, barely manages to win it. 20 seconds left right now, and they still haven't gotten to site. There are still going to be players present on it. They have to get the spike down as soon as possible. 15 seconds, 10 seconds left on the clock right now. In fact, as NDG comes in, manages to find two, all down to Suka to deny the push coming in, or the plant coming in, but it's going to be a little bit too late for that. But again, that went too close for comfort. The timer, the lack of site control, it would have been devastating if NAOS lost that.
Yeah, that was it feels like this half has been really labored by Fancy. It took them a good chunk of time to try and get these trades, to try and go aggressive. It feels like NAOS right now, the second they're on sites, they've won these rounds. And with a Killjoy, that sort of should be well known, which is why I'm surprised Fancy aren't being as aggressive as they are. We're seeing another bid for mid control here, and this time with a couple of players stacked, in fact the entire team stacked either outside of B or by B link. This could potentially be where Fancy can turn it around, but losing this round, and we'll go to bind.
They probably are, and again, this is what they've been known for on Breeze. Their trademark aggression finally having a chance to materialize. They've managed to get 3 players up towards mid yet again. Yes, I can in this key position, and Nizzy as well with the operator able to hold down this particular angle. If they do decide to peek into mid here, it might prove to be absolutely devastating, because that smoke is not gonna really trap things off here. Nizzy, if they don't flash, it's going to be very difficult right now. Mojer slowly walking, does in fact spot the player, tries to go out with the operator, swings, gets a pick. Yes, I can with the help as well before the trade comes through, but things are right now in favor of Fancy here, who still have 3 to the 2 remaining from NAOS. However, NAOS, they have realized that the A side is going to be just a little bit more vulnerable through the smoke. VCO is able to find one. It's all down to just Kakarot here. Yes, I can. This is still doable. A 2v1 right now. Knows the position of both players, in fact, trying to get this pick onto the Omen here. The Honto is going to unfortunately catch him out, and he's going to be forced back from the angle. Spots out. VCO a little bit too late, and Kakarot, despite being able to find 2 on the round, is not going to be allowed to find anything else. And Fancy, after, I believe that was 4 consecutive rounds that they've lost, finally managed to find one on their defensive half.
I'm very surprised that we have I'm very surprised actually that NAOS chose to keep fighting there, even after seeing the stack. Unfortunately, Fancy won't be able to retrieve the operator, so still in a bit of trouble. But remember, in the 4 rounds on the bounce that NAOS are able to win, they really struggled to keep players alive. And because of that, their economy never really got off its feet. So instantly down to sort of a half buy, the best they can muster here. Bulldogs, the Blade Storm has to be used. Moya, offline for a moment, still shuts down Fisio. Nearsighted, no worries. Actually going to continue this extension to the site now. Through the smoke, yes I can, falls off! Oh, make it 3 with a kill onto Killers. Suka does trade, but it's into the 3-on-2. This was it for NAOS's money. There's nothing past this, but there's nothing left for Fancy.
I mean, who needs money when you have a Blade Storm? By Moore going ham, they're able to find 4 already. 10 HP left, looking for a possible ace, but that's going to be denied as Kakarot decides, look, the round is more important. You got your 4K, you can chill. You're already been popping off on this particular map. But yeah, like you mentioned, I like that you talked about how the economy for NAOS has been so difficult because of the fact that they've just been losing players left and right. Moyer, though, finally able to put a stop to the bleeding because of him being able to just find those 3 kills with the help of that Blade Storm, it is going to put a little bit of a revitalization in NAOS' economy here. They're going to be having enough for the next fight. As for Fancy, though, it's looking like a very rough round economically, though they do have have 4 ults to work with, and 3 of them are major ults. The Run It Back, the Null Command, as well as the Nightfall are perfect for the retake, or even for a little bit of mid-aggression if they choose to go for it, because it seems like they are. The Run It Back being invested right off the back of the round, enabling them to find so much space when the trades are quick, and it is going to come down to just 2 remaining players from Fancy. What exactly can they find? I am terrified for them, because it looks like we are going to be heading over to Bindcrummer.
Yep, we're going to be going to Bind. We get to see what NAOS can actually do on Bind, a map which we have seen them win on. Is the reverse sweep going to happen? Is that a possibility? Certainly wouldn't be the first reverse sweep that we've seen in this bracket. And I tell you what, there's a bloody good chance, because NAOS, they really woke up on that map. And it wasn't so much that Fancy were playing badly. It's just the minor mistakes they were making were punished vehemently by the members of NAOS. Really damn strong game from them. And now as we go to Bind, they're definitely going to be feeling the confidence.
I think that one more thing that really played a factor in this game was that, again, they weren't able to get as many rounds as they would have liked on that attacking half. Fancy really seemed to struggle a little bit, especially in the last couple of rounds. They just could not take the lead at all. And heading into the defense, they didn't have a set sentinel. They didn't have anybody who could just stay back and anchor site like Blurred was doing. So that forced them to play aggressive in the last couple of rounds. And again, this is something that now was they have a little bit of footage to watch. They faced that aggression on Breeze already, and they were able to just constantly keep punishing it, especially in these last 2 rounds that we saw. They just were holding, waiting for the push coming in, and the trades were immaculate as well. And of course, the X factor for NAOS in particular on this particular game, it has to be Mojer coming in. That man really woke up. He went in. I don't know what exactly he did some deathmatch, did some warm up, or just whatever he did, he popped off on this particular one, and he was exactly what NAOS needed to just find the momentum and the lead heading into this particular map.
You're absolutely right, and you sort of look at these highlights here. A lot of these kind of big plays that we saw, particularly from Moya, a lot of them were smart plays. A really, really smart player. Particularly kind of that peek into defender's spawn. We saw in that final round with that Blade Storm, regardless of being hit by the paranoia, he knows that they're not anticipating him to be on the high ground, so he just goes for it regardless. Really, really strong map from him, and I'm really, really impressed by it.
Me too, because after this showing we saw from Todak, yeah, again from them against Todak yesterday, they looked extremely impressive, but they just didn't seem to have the same kind of jazz heading into this particular one. But of course, when you're playing against Mojer and Blur here, it is going to make things even more difficult right now. And we were skeptical about Blurred a little bit on this particular map, switching over from that chamber into that Killjoy. But as that Killjoy, I just think that he was able to let the players on the A side do what they want to do, get a little bit aggressive, fine, and play according to their comfort. And he was just able to anchor B with the help of that Fade utilities. So many rounds you saw him, especially once he got that Odin into his hands, it just looks incredibly difficult for Fancy to even get onto the site. In fact, I think that they didn't even get the plant in half of their attacking rounds.
Yeah, exactly. And I feel like for Fancy, they tried to play their Breeze ethos over on Ascent. It just didn't work. You can't play retake against a Killjoy. You just can't. It's in premise, you can't. And we really started to see that. And what it meant is for Fancy as well, when we were seeing them sort of in these afterplants, in these retakes, they split up just like momentarily too far. It's just now just so good at punishing them.
Yeah, and of course, I think that on these retakes, they always were late to the party. The thing that we saw on Breeze, right, that they just didn't give NAOS the time to get into their post plan positions or set themselves up. We didn't see that coming in on this particular map, and I think that played a huge difference in the attacking rounds coming in from them. They were just able to really set themselves up in those crossfires, being able to just pop off. And of course, again, this particular round, it still gives me shivers up my spine. That was the last blade. He manages to get the reset, hit that shot get the third kill as well. Goes towards heaven, finds the fourth, and he doesn't get the fifth, but it's still going to be a great round coming in for NAOS. And again, they were just ready to constantly punish the infractions coming in from Fancy United. We're just able to find no space on this particular map. But yeah, looking at the scoreboard, I'm pretty sure we know who's going to be the MVP for NAOS. Yep, it is going to be none other than Moyer.
Yeah, he really, really had a strong game. Looking at Fancy again, if we go on to Bind and Fancy play Bind like they've played Ascent, like they played Breeze, and we see Blurred go on the Killjoy again, it's over. It's over. Sure, Killjoy on Bind, let's be honest, is one of the more niche picks we've seen, but so's Phoenix. And yes, ICANN's been bringing it out for both maps of the series, so let's be honest, any standards of the meta are out the window for the time being. Blood's probably going to be on the chamber. I really want for him to be on the chamber, but the Killjoy isn't a bad shout.
I mean, he definitely managed to. I think on Bind in particular, if you are playing on that B side with that Killjoy, she is a really strong agent because you can have a lot of really pesky setups that are impossible to break until you really jump into sight. And of course, the information coming in, we saw how Blur was able to just swing off the back of the turret going off, or the alarm like literally giving him a cue there. So, irrespective of what he plays, Blurred, he's been very consistent over the past 2 maps, and if he can manage it for a third map as well, now we'll have a chance heading back into this to make the reverse sweep. But again, from the side from on this particular map, it just seemed like Blurred really had the backup that he desperately didn't have on Breeze, able to work with Mojer, him on the Mojer on the A side, able to just get multi-frags consistently. Blurred anchoring that B side, it was what now was really needed to take the lead in the defensive half, and they just pushed it all the way through. But for Fancy on Bind, I was going through some of their stats on this particular map, and I think that they did play it yesterday on Todak, against Todak as well, and they really struggled. Sure, they ended up winning it, but it went to overtime, Kramer. It was so close, and it looked so difficult for them heading into it, especially coming after this loss.
Yes, you're absolutely right. Of course, to kind of recap what we've seen this series, it was Fancy United over on NAOS' map pick. He was able to take it 13-4. We just saw a hell of a performance over on a center, which NAOS were able to strike back, taking their map 13-6 there. Now we move to Bind. My God, it's going to be a close series, one you do not want to miss. Gonna have a prediction from you, Zach? Who do you think is going to be winning this one, Fancy or NAOS?
I'm not saying
no
anything,
prediction.
'cause-
No prediction.
I think I opened my mouth on the first map. I jinxed them. I didn't say anything the second map. It worked out. I don't want to say anything that could jinx either of these teams because so far they've both given us one hell of a show. I think that whoever wins, they're gonna completely deserve that slot heading into I believe the group stage. But Kramer, you keep asking me for these predictions. What do you think after watching both of these teams in action?
I mean, I think that I think Fancy, bear in mind, Fancy have quite a good support staff. I know the coach is very good, so I imagine we're going to have a pretty quick talk from them sort of in the break, and I imagine their bind's actually going to be quite strong. I think it's going to be Fancy, but it's going to be bloody close. I won't be surprised if we see overtime. We'll have to find out if all these predictions come true in just a moment. As we head to a short break, we'll be back momentarily.
Dog shine surprise. They be like, what you mean? What is your winning scheme? I got a giant team. Biggest my self-esteem. Run it back, running man. They think they go hard, I'm like, come again. You run at a time and I'm busting in. While you stumbling, I got this blade in my hand for your punishment.
We're wide awake now, our eyes are wide open. We're running this world, we're keeping it turning. We're living like giants, giants. We're bigger than giants, we're giants. You thought that we were weak, but we coming right back. This time you're gonna see how we do it like that. We're living like giants, giants. We're bigger than giants, we're giants. Oh, sleeping giants, sleeping giants.
Those cravers backstab me, deceive me. Never shall I tolerate their crimes again. Now let the hunt begin. Yeah. 7,000 souls scared and daunted, such a tale of woe. Not too long ago, this village was a golden scene of hope. Hold down the reckoning to bring back hope and peace, restore our glory to live forever. Yeah, bring down the dark regime. I know how to unleash eternal power. Lead us to order. I am the light bringer. Yeah. Welcome to the world, no heroes and villains. Welcome to the war, we've only begun.
And welcome back to the Ultragear LG presenting the Esports Club Challenger Series VCT off-season event, powered by Amazon India, a GPU partner of Xerxia Gaming, a gaming partner of Intel, our memory and storage partner of Crucial, a laptop partner of Asus, and of course our broadcast partners over at Loco. I know what you're thinking, why there's so many partners? Well, that'll be because it's a really damn good tournament, as these games have suggested. We're now going to a third map between NAOS and Fancy United, with a blow for blow, both teams winning their opponent's map pick, as we now go into Bind off the back of NAOS's impeccable performance over on Ascent. It's all to play for now. The loser gets eliminated. The winner will go through to the group stage, where they will be joining both Xerxia and Bleed. Of course, I'm your caster Kramer 3. I'm joined by the amazing Zach. How are you feeling about this? And more importantly, going to Bind, what do you think we're going to be seeing from Blurred, who has been alternating between that Chamber and that Killjoy?
I don't know, because historically Blurred is a guy who usually just picks up that chamber and pops off on it. But the Skilljoy pick on Ascent, he usually does go in for the chamber, so it's a little bit of a change of pace. He was able to perform phenomenally, so I generally think it could go either way. I think that he might be just sticking to the Killjoy, but again, I don't have the blueprint for this. I don't have the script for this particular series. So if you do have it, let me know. But talking about the two maps that we've already seen, right? Heading into this, you said that it is likely that we're going to be seeing a 2-0 coming in from Fancy. And after that map number 1, I was inclined to agree with you. But now over the course of this tournament, they've demonstrated time and time again that they are just not a team that you can underestimate. And on Ascent, they proved exactly that. You talked about how each team was able to steal each other's match pick, but also we need to mention about how they did it, because each team did it in a completely dominating fashion. 13-4 by Fancy and 13-6 by NAOS. And heading into Bind, I'm wondering if it's going to be closer, whether it's going to be one of these domination stomps that we've seen so far. But at least looking at the data, I think that it's going to be really close. It's going to go down to the wire here, Kramer.
You're absolutely right, and I'm inclined to agree with you. I wouldn't be surprised if we see overtime here. Bind is a map both of these teams have played. Bind is a map both of these teams have won on, and in this tournament, Bind is a map both of them have 100% win rates on. So someone is going to be breaking statistics today, and we're going to see who it is in just a moment. Now, both of us listed to Fancy in predictions, having seen Ascent. Now I have predicted against for every map they've played. I feel like I've got to change it. I feel like I've got to support them time and time again. They've proved me wrong. Do I ditch the boys at Fancy? I think I might. I'm feeling NAOS at the moment. I know. I'm sorry. I've got to.
You already messed up VCO's name, and now you're leaving his team as well. Kramer,
yeah. Well, hey, look, we're abandoning one. We're abandoning them all, and so it's I think NAOS, they've surprised me every time. Got to stick with them. Got to go to them. I'm a traitor. I'm a turncoat.
I'm going to refrain from throwing any kind of caster's curse on this particular thing. But one statistic that I would like to note heading into Bind is that you mentioned that both of these teams do have a 100% win record on this particular map. What we need to look at is how they won it. Because when NAOS played it, they were playing against South-Built Esports. They won 13-4, a dominating performance. Contrast that with the match we saw yesterday, I believe, from Fancy United against Todak. Again, both of these teams are pretty strong. Both South-Built in their region, in the Philippines, they're one of the top teams. Todak in Malaysia, like you mentioned, they are the top team. And the thing is, while NAOS they were able to win Bind 13-4 Fancy, they were able to win it in overtime in a really extended battle. It was so close. It just kept bouncing back and forth like a ping pong ball. And NAOS, they are coming off the win on Ascent as well, so the momentum is definitely in their favor.
It absolutely is. And now as we sort of look over at how Bind is going to be played out, in terms of agent compositions, both these teams were targeting one half. Over to NAOS, they were targeting their defense on Ascent. Over to Fancy, they were targeting their attack on Breeze. Let's see if there will be any target picks going into Bind now as we move into our agent select. It looks like fairly standard composition so far. It feels like when I say standard and see Fancy playing standard, that worries me because they've been throwing curveballs all for the entire series. I imagine we'll be seeing Killer go to his raise, and with that, it's pretty standard.
I'm very disappointed to see SICAN off the Phoenix. I know that he does like to play the Astra on this map, but I was hoping against hope that we would be seeing that double duelist combo coming in again, especially considering that Fancy are starting off on the attack. But Kreber, your question is going to be answered. Blurred is back to his tried, tested, and favorite chamber, and Moyer, well, after that pop off onto the jet, he's going to be switching over to a slightly more explosive agent race, which is kind of the standard on this map, to be fair. But looking at the setup coming in for the defenders here, it does seem like NAOS they have the right idea heading into this because they have that Viper who is, despite a controller on paper on bind, she definitely does function as a sentinel. And to top that off, they also do have that Fade Race combo coming in from Moyer as well as G. I think that for both of these teams, it's almost going to be a mirror comp. The main difference is going to be that KO for the side of Fancy versus the Chamber for, I believe, NAOS here. And again, considering that, like you mentioned, they like to go in for that comp depending on where they're starting off on, and seeing that they are on defense, the chamber pick is going to prove really useful because you can take those fights, get that pick, and immediately fall back. And chamber, well, we saw how Blur plays. We know how he plays.
Yeah, you're right. And this is also alongside the Astra versus the Brimstone. For me, I think the Astra has a little bit more afterplant utility than a Brim. The Brim, yes, he has his orbital strike. However, that's something you can only bring out every couple of rounds. It's not something you can consistently do, like the Gravity Well over on Astra. So I think that for Fancy, they're looking to play more of their sort of afterplant retakes and sort of set up for that. Over on NAOS, I imagine something a little bit more aggressive may come through. Some fairly close smokes to allow the race to just pop through them and wreak havoc.
Yeah, and the one thing I like about Brimstone on Bind is that his smokes, they're good if you are planning to go for an initial hit, but if you want to fake and play around with the map and really confuse your opponents, it's not a really great agent. So considering that he only has 3 smokes, I think that might be a major factor heading into this matchup. If NAOS aren't able to execute on the bat, if they are going to be able to stop by Fancy on their attacking rounds, it might prove to be very difficult to rotate over or possibly re-hit a site if the damage hasn't been done yet. But I think for NAOS in particular on this map, seeing that they are on defense, that Brimstone is going to be incredibly important because both that Molotov as well as I believe those snake bites from their Viper, they're gonna buy so much stalling power, so much time that they could really use to push and really trouble Fancy with, for lack of a better phrase.
Yeah, and actually to sort of kind of zoom us out a bit to see the bigger picture of this whole bracket, remember on the other semi-final match, we've got, I believe, Sunday's Best versus Alter Ego. Now, Alter Ego have played damn well this tournament, winning their opening game 13-1. They're 2-0ing no-namers. This APAC qualifier is looking pretty damn good. Of course, over in our South Asia qualifier, we've got franchise players, eStar Esports, and Velocity Gaming who have all gone through. So this is turning into a really damn good bracket. I think this group stage is going to be really interesting. Whoever wins this match, by all means, doesn't suddenly have an easy timing in the group stage. In fact, I imagine this match is sort of a telltale sign that everything's just going to get harder. The quality of play is just going to get better and better and better as this tournament progresses. However, we're ready to go in-game. Let's take a look to see what these teams have in store for us for our third and decisive map of this series. Remember, the loser will be going home. The winner will be progressing to our group stage of our Challenger Series. For now, Fancy starting on the attack versus NAOS, who will be opting for the defense, and what looks like maybe a bit of a swing past Hookah into V-Shores.
Yeah, the spike is looking like it's heading towards B right now, but both of the controller players for the side of NAOS are going to be positions here, and this is what I talked about before we headed into this map, just the stall potential for them. If they are able to just constantly being able to put down those smokes and re-smoking the utility, that might prove to be very important. But again, Kremer, look at the star placement from this Astra already on towards the long, ready to go in for the execute. So this might prove to be very interesting because it's going to come down to a showdown of the controllers here, both teams having a Viper in play. But like you mentioned, that Astra on attack, she has a lot of value, but on defense, I'm not quite sure because her smokes, they can bring a little bit of stalling, they can be used, but they just don't have the same annoying impact that the Brim ones have. You can't play around them as much, though I think the one key thing that matters between both of these controllers is going to be that ultimate, right? Sure, you don't get either of them often, but that orbital strike just has so much more impact compared to the Cosmic Divide, in my opinion.
Yeah, it really does. Something else to mention is we do have a brief tech timeout, so we may have been faked a little bit with this start. But on the topic of fakes, as you mentioned, with that Astra, fakes are going to be a little bit more prevalent. So something else I want to see faked quite a bit. So I want to see how this Viper wall may potentially fake site pushes and may actually enable lurkers to be able to get rounds into lamps. And judging by that Viper's smoke or wall already placed, it looks like now they're going to be starting with a very aggressive pistol round.
Yeah, they are looking to aggress out, like you mentioned, from this hookah area. NDG already pushing out, trying to take somebody by surprise, perhaps. That teleporter as well being taken with the help of the Prowler. They're looking to peek, and so far, it seems like Fancy, they're not really biting. They don't want to lose players quite right off the bat. They've had a taste of that on a sense. It didn't really go quite well down their throat. But in the meantime, long control has already been taken by Fancy, and now they I don't know if NAOS are aware of this possibility, because so far there hasn't been much sound really given away. Right now towards A short, there is going to be a little bit of positioning coming in from these players, but the battle towards hookah is where the action is at right now. With Blur taking the teleporter as well, things are looking a little bit more difficult for for Fancy if they really want to aggress here. But it seems like they're just looking for that exactly.
They're going to try and pursue this kill onto Killers there. Eventually, oh, it's labored. They're eventually able to get it. But elsewhere, the entirety of NAOS' defense has just collapsed. Down to 2 players left, spotted as Fancy dive through defenders spawn. They're heading, it's around the world right now for Fancy. And the only ones looking daft is going to be the last 2 members of NAOS. They have to slowly tread the footprints of their opponents back through their own spawn now into a retake onto A, with NDG already on just a mere 13 HP.
Yeah, there's a pull. Astra Star as well put down to make things worse. They just committed. The flash is impeccable from Vision right now, able to find one. It's all down to just Kakarot here. Can he get? How many can he get? It's not going to be can he get the round. How many can he get? The answer to that is just going to be 1. But you know, I pointed this out. We saw it on the minimap. It didn't really get much coverage in the game, but the long control being taken there by Fancy in such a stealthy manner is really going to be what nets them that particular pistol round here. And they were just able to converge on these 2 players in hookah. Both NDG and Kakarot were just trapped, and it was a 3-for-1 trade coming in from Fancy there, who really capitalized. And again, you've talked about how these pistol rounds, they have so much impact on this game, and Fancy in particular, if they win it, they are looking to have a very strong half. Yet again, though, the buy coming in from them, it is going to be those Vandals, the purchase of this heavy rifles coming in, and again, the patience. This is a Fancy we haven't quite seen yet.
It is. Look at the aggression from Blurred here. Headhunter in hand. He's trying to catch out this first play. Yes, I can spots it out, though. Something to mention about Fancy's buy here as well is with 2 Vandals and a Spectre, the rest are sort of holding on to their ghosts, means that these Vandals are going to be the linchpin on any form of attack. And it means that if they lose one of these Vandals, they lose a significant amount of firepower. A swing past this Viper's wall is going to be spotted by Visio. And actually, it's just going to get overwhelmed. Moya finishes the job. And as mentioned, there goes a huge chunk of Fancy's firepower now in losing one of those Vandals.
Yeah, and that's going to be picked up by NAOS as well. So this round is definitely possible if they can connect more shots. The spike is going to go down on this B side, and Kakarot has that information. The rest of the players are going to be coming in for the flank, and yet again, the defenders have turned into the attackers here. It's a cosplay coming in from them. Moyer does have the paint shells to work with, though not much HP in his favor here. And again, the one-way though, that might prove to be pivotal here, because it is going to spot out, I believe, the head of one of these players. Kakarot able to connect the shot. Suddenly, Fancy are looking incredibly weak despite having the buy-in coming in this one, and we might just see the anti-evo going in the wrong direction right now. The spike starting to get diffused. The right click is good. Half the diffuse has already come through, and it's all down to just Suka. How many can he find? 1 is the answer, and it's gonna be a thrifty. Oh no, losing that Vandal was devastating, and of course, I feel like now they expected to go in for the retake onto this B side. They expected the push in towards CT and elbow from Fancy, and that one way towards that particular area, it just won them the round.
Feels like Fancy got a little bit too cocky. It really does, because going for 2 Vandals only and then having one of your Vandals lurk means your firepower really isn't much. You end up with a bit of a dependency on utility, and when your firepower's almost a level with your opponents, regardless of buy, this is going to be really damn difficult now. Level-headed, 1-2-1. We are going to see, I believe, a brief tech pause as well now, as we try to figure out sort of what Fancy do on what's going to be just a handful of pistols. That being said, I mean, yeah, there is the old Sheriff in the mix, there is the old Frenzy. It's not a position you want to be in, particularly when you're able to start your pistol round with such success.
Yeah, you know, it's a double-edged sword buying the Vandals on those rounds. I faced it in my own ranked games.
Yeah.
You know, I'd have a teammate, he buys a Vandal, he goes and he drops it into the defenders, and suddenly the round, there's a Reyna who's angry with the Vandal who goes off. And it happens so many times, not just in our games, but in
Yeah,
the VCT as
absolutely.
well. It's always devastating when it does. And now they're going to be revitalized after that particular round. You know, again, this double controller, especially that Brimstone coming in for them, is huge. And I like how Blurred in particular, he is playing so aggressively, not afraid to take that TP with the help of those prowlers coming in from his fade there. Just the way that NAOS are playing this particular map, they're not afraid to go in for the retake either. And so far it's been 50-50, right? The pistol didn't go so well, but now that if I feel like they've gotten the measure of Fancy over the course of these last two maps, and on Bind, it feels like they're almost reading them like a book.
It really does. The one thing that I think may play against NAOS here is if they also get too cocky, if they get a little bit too aggressive, even though they are against Sheriffs, they were able to just show what can be done if you're able to overwhelm your opponents. They just showed it in our second rounds. If this ends up being done back onto them, I'm going to be very surprised if NAOS sort of allow themselves to be 50 back. That being said, Fancy, of course, pistols to work with. I don't think we have any ults available either, so nothing's really going to be able to help Fancy going into this third round, and this is where NAOS try and get a bit of a lead established.
Yeah, I mean, it is 1-1 right now, and I was looking at the ults before, and it seems like Kakarot is only two away from that Viper's Pit on this particular round. Even if he can get it online, I don't think we're really going to be seeing it invested. But for that next round, it's going to really enable them to completely shut down a site or an area of the map. We've seen how often short is the favorite area for attackers to really take on Bind, because that A side is just a little bit easier to take in my opinion compared to B. But you know, if that Viper's Pit is going to be put down there, it's going to make aggression coming in from Fancy so difficult. But I think I'm getting a little bit ahead of myself. You know, talking about the last round that we saw from Fancy, it just felt very weird that they chose to leave just one player with the Vandal alone, because they know the danger of that situation. It's happened so many times before.
Yeah, it really has. Now we have a brief tech pause. It's quite hard to analyze 2 rounds in. Let's be honest, but hopefully in just a moment we'll be able to bring you back the game. And hopefully these tech issues won't persist. I won't lie, we've been pretty good with tech pauses. We haven't had many, but unfortunately the gods of the internet have decided, you know what? You're having too much fun for an online tournament. We can't let that happen. So they are finally going to strike. Luckily, it is in the early stages of this map rather than sort of in the latter stages. And with that, we're going to be able to head back into this game. Fancy currently sent reeling from an eco victory at the hands of NAOS. Let's see if NAOS are going to be able to continue that momentum now, bringing out a much stronger buy than what Fancy were able to muster for their second round.
Ooh, they're already getting aggressive towards the lead on Moyer, pushing up with the help of his friends. They're able to find, it is going to be NDG who finds the first, in fact, is going for the second, though will connect. And this is how you do a push heading into this particular one. You go as a team, you go with friends, you don't just leave a Vandal to drop alone. Just like that, it is going to be 4 players already down for Fancy. The Spike as well lost. PCO left alone in a 1v3 as his teammate did manage to find Satchel. Not really doing much with Kakarot. Wraps around from that A side. He's like, hey, you guys can't have all the fun. I want to get a kill too, and gets one of his own. So it is going to be 2 players dropped for NAOS, but you know, their economy is still going to be in a fairly healthy spot, and they managed to really try and get some of these key ultimates closer to online here. I think in just a second we'll be able to look at the scoreboard and see exactly who has what. But you know, that was an eco round for Fancy, so not really much to be evaluated from there. Heading into this one though, they do have that Nightfall online, so I think that might be a major ultimate to watch out for, because again, all the players who are hit by it, they're gonna be blind, deaf, and decayed. Everything at the kitchen sink being thrown at them there. So NAOS are yet again playing aggressive. This 3-stack towards shorts. Interesting.
Something else to mention, by the way, is that they're 1 away from a Viper's Pit on NAOS here. So either later this round or next round, we're going to start seeing some real ults come out here. Now comes the Nightfall. This is off the back of Killers getting that opening. There is no trade just yet, but neither is there a follow-up off the back of this Nightfall. Great delay usage from the members of NAOS here. And for G actually not wanting to risk being caught out by this Lamps push. Look how heavily Fancy have stacked up to Lamps. It's going to be down to Killers to try and just delay this control from being taken back off of them. It's Yes I Can to chime in. Another clean shot traded by NDG. Low HP, remember, on Physio here means that this is by all means winnable from NAOS. PHL to be deployed. So it's going to be the Haunt, the Prowler, Killers. He's being dropped every single bit of utility this Fade has, but he's not budging. He's not shifting position. And this quiet now, this delay, this calm before the storm has forced the Fade back through defender spawn over to B. This is perfect mind games being played by Fancy here. Haunt comes out, NDG doesn't care. It's from the flank. Killers is able to get that kill, finally springing that Lamp's Lurk, with it all being left on one lone Fade and a 1v3. Low HP on the Viper means that damage is most definitely doable here, but he needs to find a way to shut down what is currently a very, very hungry Raze on for his third of the round.
Yeah, Killers being able to just satchel in and find that first pick, assert Lamp's control there was huge right now. G in this 1v3 has no information aside from Killers possibly holding onto that position in U-Halls. The 0 point will let him know about the presence of a player towards short. The flick onto Fisio is going to be good, but the crossfire between these two players in U-Hall as well as short is going to be impossible. The reload comes in at the worst time possible. Nazi will peek through and get that pick, and just like that, he's going to have the null command active for this next round as well. As Fancy United, they managed to bring it back 2-2, and now as they're left in, they are going to be able to buy in on this particular round. But again, they're also going to be investing in that operator. So Blurred, if he's in the right place at the right time, that's going to be something to really watch out for, and that's going to be something that's really crucial. And so far, it seems like he might be able to catch some of the action towards long here.
Something else to mention is you look at the kind of ults coming online. They're one away from that Viper's Pit, of course, on Fisio. It's going to be Killers 2 from a Showstopper, but this is in conjunction with a Viper's Pit already available for now, a Nightfall already available, and one of the most crucial ults available for them being that Orbital Strike. That huge plant delay, or better still, retake capabilities available for them, means that they can justify not getting a kill here on Blurred and then just getting out of there. And well, it's no kill. Yes, I can. A clean shot as Blurred is taken down, leaving it all onto a lone Viper to defend this B site. With the pit available, be interesting to see if they feel pressured enough to commit it though.
Oh, Fisio though is going to give the players of NAOS 3 strong down to a short a particular pick. Off the back of that, they have the information that this B side is comparatively much weaker, and they are going to be aggressing into it. The teleporter though is going to be taken. Information as well with the Haunt. Nevertheless, the Kakarot stands strong in this position, able to get one somehow. Follow-up is there. Owen tries to push it and get the pick, but the shots from Fancy are too pristine compared to NAOS, who just are not able to connect it. It's all down to just NDG. They are trying to get the KO back up, so that's going to be a 1v2, but the Orbital Strike is committed just a little bit too late, and Fancy, with 3 remaining players standing, are able to find their round. But you know, talking about how it went down, right? Towards long, you do see a high-risk, high-road play coming in from Blurred, pushes the Viper, Snakebite, gets vulnerable, tries to get the shot, not quite able to connect it as Yes I Can, taps him out of the picture. But you know, one thing that I don't understand is why Kakarot did not commit that Viper's pick, because I know he would have been flanked eventually, but he could have bought so much time there for the rest of his team.
That was a really shaky round by now. Both, sort of the 3 key points there is the lack of Viper's Pit, the 2 players who swung from hookah and missed pretty much every bullet, and then the needless committal of the Orbital Strike. It feels like all 3 kind of errors there allows Fancy to get a lot more impact than they really should have. Yes, I Can, once again, good for the entry as Moya falls. Does he anticipate the fate to also be through the teleporter, though? As G starts slowly shifting forward, it looks like Yes I Can is acutely aware of it. Nightfall available, but you're not going to want to use it when all you have is one shy sheriff to accompany you in this lonely foray.
Taking that back.
I feel like Yes I Can has forgotten that he's still not playing Phoenix, because that's exactly how he is going with the Astra. Able to constantly find that first pick is amazing, and again, he's aware of the possibility. Never mind, he does not check it clearly. Is going to be caught by G, and after the back of that first pick, it does seem like they are using that ultimate to get at least some information at the very least. G will spot out one player, but he might not be ready for this 4-strong push coming in. Viper wall coming up, making this even more rougher now through the smoke. The spray comes through, trying to do damage, not really able to quite connect or find anything, and unfortunately it's going to be the Prowler that hits MDG, completely blinding him and leaving him vulnerable right now. However, G, he's managed to lurk back through the showers. The second Prowler will catch out his position off the back of the Haunt, tries to swing, tries to deny the plant, but it's not going to be happening right now, as with NAOS, with only 2 remaining players, they are going to struggle in this research.
Right, G, vulnerable, finished off by Suka. It's all on Kakarot. Killers finishes the job, and with that, the deed is done. The eco is converted. limited, and now NAOS get to bring out their proper guns. They get to bring out the big scary Vandals, or the bigger and scarier operator on Blurred. This is in conjunction with Kakarot, still with that Viper's Pit. I would like to see it use this round. I feel like it has to be. For Fancy, the counter utility is there, with that Showstopper, with that Cosmic Divide, and that Viper's Pit. Fancy now have a huge amount of a myriad of win conditions they can fall back upon, whereas for NAOS, it feels very much dependent on what Blurred can do with this operator.
I mean, another reason why I like Viper on this map is this wall towards short that just completely denies so much right now. It is yet again going to be the push coming in from Showers this time around. The Vipers, Snakebites both have been committed. The Showstopper as well from Moyer, which is going to be hunting down players, going into the Showers angle towards the Vipers, but throw it and immediately takes out the Vipers somehow. That is huge right now. The counter Showstopper on 4 HP trying to find some value here. Can it do so? It's going to be the question. The answer to that is unfortunately no. Things are back down to a 4v pillar. Nizzy is still going to be alive, finding Blurred with the operator, catches him off guard, and suddenly what looked like a round that now was easily converted is falling apart for them. It's down to these 3 players remaining. Kakarot in a 1v1 right now. Controller versus Controller. Astra versus Viper. The spike not quite in Xerxia's position, so he is just going to be able to walk up and take it, and just takes the TP, goes to the B side. He's like, I want none of the stuff on this day. He knows the Viper wall is there as well, and will be able to get there early enough to get the spike down. But in this 1v1, I don't think he really has any smokes left either. And with the Viper's bit available, it's going to be difficult if it's popped. But Xerxia chooses to take the aggressive fight instead and barely wins it. 33 HP left on this man. As Fancy, they find their lead to 5. And Kremer, I think that when you switched over to NAOS, you kind of jinxed them. I'll be honest.
It's been a rough day for my predictions. I won't lie. It's been a rough day for predictions. But you look over to NAOS. It's a couple of Stingers, a couple of Sheriffs in the mix. That was a huge number vaults from both teams there. We saw Killers drop his Showstopper, as did Moya. Out came the Viper's Pit on Fishio, didn't get to do too much damage. This is alongside the committal of the Cosmic Divide as well, so Fancy really pushed to win that round. They are rewarded for it, and once again, it's now down to a couple of pistols, but this time, the stack's in the right place. A 3-player committal to this B site may be able to inflict some damage here on the Fancy as they look to push into them.
They already do have both Long and Hookah Joe. The Moyer jumps up, able to get the triple link with that Stinger. Again, the buff really showing to be, the buff to the Stinger really proving to be an annoyance for Fancy as they take that first hit coming in. After the back of that, they're going to fall back a little bit, but look at the HP on Moyer. He's going to be so low right now, just a breath away from his demise. 5 HP to his name, though. I mean, if he can somehow get one more kill, that is going to give him the paint shells offline, and still this 3 stack towards B is holding strong. The one thing that Fancy constantly have to do is they have to keep checking their backs, because they don't really have a chamber or a killjoy, anyone who can just watch their flanks. So it is always going to be VCO forced to play in this lurk position. So far, the rest of his team has been doing fine without him, but in a position where they are really down, I think that might prove to be an issue. Once that contest comes back, though, it is going to be Suga Investigate trying to spot out some players. Does in fact find one before it gets broken. Is able to get that pick, and VCO finding 2 in fact on this round is going to be huge there. It's all down to just NDG. Will hear the Prowler coming in. Tries to swing off it. Does get the Scaler and the Spike. The reload though takes just a little bit too long, and off the back of that, it's gonna come down to just Blurred here. He's been huge so far. Gets that walking kill onto Fizzy. Tries to get the second onto Xerxia, but can't quite connect the shot. VCO is going to be so low, 7 HP. I feel like that round could have, if Blurred had gotten the kill onto Xerxia, I feel like that round could have been a Thrifty materializing. And heading into this full buy, this timeout is going to be called. That's a good call, because right now you've lost 4 rounds in a row. You finally have a buy coming back up, and you really don't want to let Fancy continue with their momentum stomp, for lack of a better phrase.
Yeah, it gives them a chance to sort of rest, recuperate, and figure out what to do next. I want to highlight that they actually did quite a bit of damage there, considering that they only had a couple of Sheriffs, killing 3 players of Fancy, making them commit that much utility, for me, was a pretty successful round. But of course, the number at the top is what matters, and Fancy are, as you mentioned, establishing quite a lead now. 4 rounds on the bounce. It's out for the tactical timeout. From the back of this, I want to see some aggression on NAOS. I think that you've got a chamber with a sort of force in his back pocket. That's your safety net. So that chamber can now really start pushing.
I mean, so far, yeah, he's been playing fairly passively, and the thing is that he's just being constantly caught off guard. Blurred has never looked so, well, blurred, for lack of a better phrase, and he's just, again, like, on the B side, he tries to get the pick, but he's just being constantly shut down by Yes I Can, with his utility. You know, every single round, you've seen that star being committed towards B long to try and smoke the chamber out. You do see the sneak fights as well coming in once you get that information from the jump feed, so that's gonna make things a bit rough right now, but Blurred, yet again, is going to be able to get that operator online, and if he can finally find some value with it, it might be what they need. A 4-stack from NAOS coming in towards this A side here. A lot of information that I don't think Fancy quite have yet. They haven't spotted anything with the utility as of now, and they are going to be still nevertheless making the push. Now they know that there is a raise, but this operator towards Shower, it might prove to be pivotal here. Blurred needs to get this first pick, needs to be able to TP out and not get traded. And again, the way that Fancy is playing this, they're completely changing up the pace. They're completely just waiting out NAOS and getting them confused as to where exactly the hit is. And I think they're regrouping towards B instead.
This push could be really dire for Yes I Can. If he falls, you lose your smokes to this B here, and the Viper can then start playing with the snake bites. I actually don't like the concept of the Astra lurking, and because of that, I imagine Fancy may actually be looking to fake B and then go for this wrap over to A. That being said, 40 seconds left. That's not much time at all here, Zach. And it feels actually, yeah. Now they've run down the clock. Fancy don't have a choice. This is a B hit. It's B or bust. And with the Viper down to worry, out comes the smokes from the Astra. Sure, it's from a distance, but that's the pro of having an Astra. Out comes the Nightfall. And now they really need to gun into this site.
Luckily for them, there is no Viper spin on the side. There is nothing. There is going to be nothing much on the side either. But the orbital strike from the Brimstone is going to do quite a bit of damage, buying a little bit more time in the process. The spike still hasn't gone down. Remember, the PHL's doing so much here, and the spike still hasn't gone down. They're out of time, and despite there being only 2 players left, make that 1. It's all down to just the Astra. Now they even though they were a player down, the lurk is a little bit too late. It does take the operator down, but the round is lost, and they just off the snake bite, the orbital strike, and the paint shells, they just get the round. That is a heartbreaker for Fancy.
I was worried about the time. Unfortunately, Fancy weren't. So it came back to haunt them. This is very much, they commit the Nightfall to that as well. The silver lining is that Yes I Can was able to kill the operators just at the end of that round there. So you're forcing out the Sword of Force, and the money on NAOS isn't great. So extra frags definitely helps, but I don't think there's much virtue other than that in these frags now. As 6-3 is the scoreline, Fancy, 6 rounds on your attack of mine, sorry, certainly isn't bad. So I don't see it being too bad for them, but they need to try and find a way to make these rounds work, particularly when you're at the final depths of your economy. NDG, Judge upgraded to Vandal now, and with smokes delaying the trade, Fancy, you're on the back foot.
Unfortunately, though, it is going to be the trade coming in. Your Brimstone is going to be down. There's going to be no more Molly left for you to delay. But talking about Mollies, it is going to be Kakarot finding a fix somehow with a snake bite. I guess PCO was just really low there. And now that the advantage numerically is in the hands of NAOS, they're going to be happy to wait for the possible retake. They still do have that Viper spin. They've had it for like 4 rounds now, but whatever. They still do have it in their possession. They haven't quite invested it yet either, so that might prove to be useful. That Null Command, though, that might be what Fancy really needs to bring this round in their favor, especially considering the deficit. Never mind, I take it back. It is going to be the quick 2 kills coming in. It's all down to just Suka, who can't really find much except for 1 kill. And just like that, NAOS, they hold strong. And again, the discipline, for lack of a better phrase, on these retakes from NAOS, they're just happy to wait for a mistake from Fancy. And I think for this round, the expectation from NDG that, yeah, it's probably going to be killers just trying to satchel it and take you all control like the last time around. You know, B isn't working out for them. They're probably going to come in, guys. Don't worry, I got it. I can afford a rifle, but I got something better, and that's going to be the judge.
I feel like Fancy have got a real problem when it comes to committing ultimates. They've really struggled to get some mileage out of them. We saw no command there. It was good for about the grand total of a second. You know, the Cosmic Divide, yes, it allowed a plant, but there's nothing past that. In the earlier rounds, we've seen Nightfalls, which have come back fruitless. It seems to be Fancy's Achilles heel right now.
Oh, yeah, the Stinker, though, is still finding so much value. value here as it gets one kill, but G strikes back, able to find something of their own, and towards this long angle. Oh no, another kill with the Stinger, almost getting the third as well, but NDG is able to close it out. And again, a very quick round this time around. You did see the Stinger finding some value, but at the end of the day, NAOS are able to find their momentum back, and this is pretty huge coming in from them because on this defensive side, you really don't want to be too many rounds down. You want to make it as close, in fact, take as much of an advantage as possible. And right now, they don't have the possibility of the advantage, but they do have the possibility of the equalizer. And we have, I think for Fancy, they do have one ult already, only one more very close to it. Two, in fact, very important ults. I think that you do have the showstopper. That might be what Fancy need to really find their way into the side because so far, NAOS have been incredible at just running down the clock with the sheer amount of utility that they have in their possession.
Now this utility from the Viper is going to buy a little bit of space here, but NAOS have really stepped up in the latter stage of this first half. And for Fancy, showstopper available, Kakarot still has this Viper's Pit. It's not been used all half. Out comes the showstopper for the killers here, and no mileage to be acquired from it at all. It's not going to be able to do too much damage. Through the smoke, he's going to be tagged down. It's an instant trade, and now the response showstopper from Moya. Quite able to kill either, but the Astra now very low on HP with the push from Long coming through. NDG sent the site, has to be careful. Ready to swing on his teammates' contact. Moya good for the first. There's the 1-2 trade. And Visio is going to be kept back by these paint shells. And once again, Zach, Fancy don't get anything from these ultimates.
Yeah, it's pretty unfortunate. However, Fisio, he can still close this out. He does go for the spike, gets it. He does have that Viper's Pit. I'm very curious as to why he's not exactly popping it right now. Trying to isolate these fights per fact. Does manage to find Moyer. That's going to be huge right now. Gets the spike down. And 57 HP. Can he get the round is going to be the question. Finally does invest that particular ultimate. And now Blurred, he's going to have to push into this. He's going to have to smoke the Viper out. And with Fisio going into elbow, possibly making the wraparound, it's going to be very difficult right now for Blur to really do anything. He has to clear out every single corner because if you are trying to defuse in that pit, you're going to be so low. VCO does walk back, but it might be the timing that's perfect for Blur there. Unfortunately played. He almost had that Kremmer, but at the end of the day, it is going to be a 6-6 half as NAOS, they bring it back. They were down 4. They were down 2-4, I believe, 2-6 at some point, and they just went 4 rounds in a row and equalized things.
Yeah, absolutely perfect second half of the first half from them. I feel like with the kind of really shaky ultimates from Fancy, don't get me wrong, NAOS haven't been too good either. Kakarot just didn't use the Viper Spit for the entirety of the half, but the ones they were using had impacts. With that showstopper, it was damaging players. We saw earlier as well when they were popping their Nogabans, it was able to get them onto sites. I just feel like it's been real shaky for Fancy. The gunplay's good. And when they are going for these entries, when they go for these aggressive plays, for the most part, it's been working. It's just this lack of ability discipline is where we're seeing now to really get the edge over Fancy. Equalizing a 6-6, we go into our second half. Maybe on the second half, this is where Fancy are able to get a little bit more mileage from these big abilities. But I won't lie to you, Zach, I'm not confident.
I'm not either, but I mean, we did predict that this game would be neck and neck. Fancy are going to be switching over to the defense right now, and to be fair, so far from them, we've seen a very attacker-sided comp coming in on the 2 previous rounds. Double duelists across the board, that KO as well to boot, and right now, they do have a lot of utility, just like NAOS did. You saw how much time they were able to buy from just all of those smokes and mollies and whatnot being tossed in the direction, and Fancy, they're going to have exactly the same kit in their utility. I think the key difference maker that could cinch them this half is the lack of that KO for NAOS here, because we saw the incredible value that it was able to bring to Fancy, just being able to push onto the sides with that null command, the flashes, and just at 0 point being able to shut down those controllers, that Viper smokes, that constantly go up. I think that is going to be an agent pick that they don't have, that is not in their favor, but them having a chamber as well, that's going to be useful, because you saw how Fancy, they were constantly worried about the flank, and now they didn't really take advantage of it, but the threat was still there, and that was something else. They always had to position one of their controllers on the lurk, either Fisio or Yes I Can, having to hang back and rotate in late. It did a lot of damage to them. Now we're still not gonna have the same problem, because that trademark, there is that position towards close to different respawn that covers like the flank for everything. So that's definitely going to be a 200 piece of utility that's in their favor.
Yep, you're absolutely right. And I can't help but think that now to sort of go into the second half, Fancy really have to be careful. I think that they lose the pistol rounds, they could be in some serious trouble. Granted, I think Fancy have been able to get a success rate. It feels, I think it's about 4 or 5 pistol rounds have gone their way over the course of this series. Of course, Yes I Can really is proving to be the pistol player. But this second half, this is where those pistol rounds need to be converted. Remember, Zach, the loser goes home. There is no second chances. There is no lower bracket to climb through. You've got to win this if you want to stay in the tournament. Let's head back into our second half, where these teams continue their fight for survival, with Fancy moving to the defense, and now looking to continue their latter stage success. The first half over on their attack.
With 10 seconds heading into the round, looking at the setup coming in, it is going to be the Viper Astra combo torture. It does look like, in fact, Fisio is like trying to put an aggressive smoke up to buy a little bit more space for the team. 3 players in here, in fact, the Raze, one of them, and this could prove to be pivotal heading into this. I'm surprised that they're not playing the Raze and Fade on the same side. Usually you see that C's Paint Shells combo finding quite a bit of value. The knife 0 point does come through, gets instantly broken. You can see how they're just waiting for it, and off the back of that, not much information aside from the fact that there is some short presence here, but 3 players from Fancy are still going to be on the side, and as NAOS, it seems like they're finally going to be going in for the hit. That Viper smoke does unfortunately come up, and that's going to make things very dangerous. They push into the stack here. The damage being done is unprecedented. It's going to be Killers who finds 2, backed up by a second. 3 players down already for NAOS, though at least there is going to be the trade back from G. They are going to be able to retrieve the spike as well. So in this 2v2 situation, is still doable, considering that one of the players is going to be blurred. But in the meantime, look at this flank coming in from towards Luca.
Ali Horn is going to try and buy a bit of information here, but this flank from Hookah needs to work. Suka, the tyrant of Hookah, going to be that first point of contact.
30 seconds
G.
left.
How able to subvert his opponents, that maybe realizing it. Fisio lays in wait over in defender's spawn. I actually quite like how passive Fisio is playing here. I think he sort of extrapolated that there's going to be aggression coming towards him. G's going to be the man to try and take that fight. He does just that. It's a laboured spray. Fight runs out of ammo. Blood is able to trade it, but Blood now left in a 1 versus 2. Frenzy in hand. Time is not his friend. The Horns, the KO knife. He swings out to his death. Suka, the one to deliver that killing blow, and with that Fancy, they take another pistol round in this series.
Yeah, I think that brings their grand total to 4, if I'm not wrong, out of the 6 that we've seen today. That is a nice stat to note down for future maps. But, you know, I think that for the side of Fancy, what really won them the round was the positioning coming in from Fisio there. You know, on this map so far, he's been very quiet compared to... in fact, throughout today, he's been kind of quiet, but that was his moment to shine. Him just being able to prevent the rotate, because I think that was what NAOS was planning. They were planning to just rotate in through CT, as we saw during the first pistol from Fancy themselves. They tried to repeat the strat, but Fisio was like, nope, you're not going anywhere except into the head of my crosshair. Into this round, though, a little bit of a forced eco coming in from NAOS here. Nothing but pistols across the board. They are looking to head into side, and Fancy, they're not repeating their mistakes. They don't want to give them any more vandals to work around with, because it's just going to make things very embarrassing if they lose the second anti-eco as well. Heading into this round, the jump spot will spot out at least 1 or 2 players, but the interior is still going to be good. The Steez trying to find value. The Moyer is able to pick one up with that classic somehow. Dizzy swings, able to get the trade by Blurred. It's going to come down to a 2v3 at this point. The damage economically for Fancy has been done, and with 2 players still alive from NAOS, the question is, how much more can they find? It does seem like Blurred is going to be walking into the crosshairs of none other than Killers. It's all up to just Moyer here. Does have that upgrade on that Spectre. Trying to push into CT, but Fisio is yet again going to be lying in wait. And Fancy, they take the anti-eco, though in the process they did lose 2 of their guns, so that might prove to be useful for them.
Fisio's done such a good job at sort of extrapolating where these pushes are going to come from. It's been really damn effective, both in the pistol round now and our second as well. Yes, we do see a couple of weapons lost by Fancy, but it's a much more disciplined second round buy. We're no longer seeing these sort of ghosts held onto inspectors around the board with the odd vandal thrown into the mix, which I much prefer. Yes, your third round setup is going to be a little bit weaker, but it's a trade I think that Fancy are willing to make here. Vandals come out around the board for the members of NAOS, and for Fancy, it's going to be a bit of a default, some slow, methodical control as they worry about where NAOS are going to choose, or where Fancy are going to choose to push.
I think right now though, looking at this positioning from Muir, they might have the drop onto the hookah player if he's not going to be careful. They do have hookah control, more or less. The Suka playing in the slow cycle with that Spectre. He has the right idea. It could be devastating if they're not going to be careful about it. The combination of utility not quite catching anybody, though the TP does at this point. Wukong able to find one, gets a second as well, dodges the paint shells by jumping over them. Okay, killers, that is just a little bit shady there. A beautiful play though, nevertheless. And off the back of that, I believe it was that boom bot. It is going to be blurred, pushed back a little bit. Doesn't want to give away information that the re-hit towards this B side is coming right now, and that's where it's going to be. I believe that Killers is gonna rotate all the way back towards his A side. Just takes the TP, gets 2 kills, and walks back to A to do his original job. But you know, with 30 seconds left on the clock, the execute has to come in, Kremer, and it seems like B is going to be where it is.
30 seconds left.
Absolutely is now, and with a jump from Nizzy, they do have the early warning system set up. Still hasn't quite been able to see anyone just yet. Flash from oversight is going to be in that. Suka now is going to be the one to launch this attack. Ping onto Blurred means that Fancy is going to be able to get the man advantage, make that 2-man advantage now, down to the 1v3. Low on time, low on HP, low on friends as Kakarot is sent to the ether. Fancy put their foot down now and are really starting to put some distance between themselves and now. So it feels like the same narrative we followed in the first half. Question is, at what point do NAOS adapt? So more importantly, once they do adapt, are they going to be able to get this spree of rounds, this sort of last hurrah we saw them get, much like on that first half?
Yeah, I mean, this round, it's very unlikely they're gonna be able to close it. No Tour of Force available for Blurred quite, and you know, Blurred on this particular map has been very quiet. I think that might be a major reason why now they're not quite putting up the same numbers that we saw on Ascent on their attacking rounds. But you know, even with these pistols, we know the kind of shots they can hit, the devastation that can follow. That Prowler being sent towards showers, testing the waters here really to figure out how many players are there. It is going to be spotting out at least one, but there are 2 here. That might prove to be an even more bigger problem. NDG waiting for the TP play coming in, does manage to get a pick, but is immediately going to be traded out through the smoke as well. Nizzy disconnects a dirty shot, 3 on the round already for him, and it's all going to come down to just Blurred here, who struggles to connect the headshot onto Suka, and just like that, it is going to be Fancy who find double digits. And remember, I think they were watching our pre-show. I think they took it personally, man, you switching over.
Yeah. I need to start rooting against teams more often. It suddenly means they just explode and play better. We gotta give this a try. We'll stress test this tomorrow. As Fancy, they do have a null command available on Nizzy. They're one away from both the Showstopper on Killers as well as the Cosmic, as well as the Nightfall. Sorry, on Suka. Over to NAOS. They are 1 from that orbital strike on NDG. That orbital strike on the attack can be really, really strong for clearing positions like laps. With aggression from Killers, he's spotted, but it doesn't matter. D falls. There is a trade, and for Nizzy, it's a little bit of a messy response. Goes through the teleporter, has the Viper to assist him as he exits that room. But for Suka, low on HP now, alone on this B site, is in a position that could potentially be exploited. Luckily, with the Raze being the one who's been killed, he doesn't have to worry about grenades being lobbed to the back site.
I mean, that's his teammate that died. He still has to worry about exactly that.
Oh, that's exactly that. I do apologize.
The snake bite does take him down though at the end of the day, and yes, I can. He's still gonna be a menace towards his backside, trying to get the second as well, not quite able to connect, and just like that, Fancy, they are going to be forced to go for a 2v3 retake, I believe, though. Ficio already made his way up towards elbow. They might not expect this coming in, and he might even have the timing if he plays his cards right, though. He's afraid to get a little bit too aggressive, doesn't want to die alone, and Nizzy, with that, null command might be someone to watch out for as well. 2 players will be known to play on site. Vicio trying to make his way forward to try and fish out the positions. Does know he is going to be towards the long. However, the crossfire between these NAOS players is going to be too much for these 2 remaining players from Fancy to really break through, and unfortunately that is going to be the round loss for them. But for NAOS, it is the breath of life that they so desperately needed. Though they did lose 3 players, despite that, I think their economy is still in a healthy spot, and now they also have both that orbital strike as well as that Viper's Fist to work with, and they're only 1 away from that Showstopper as well, so a lot of ults online, and that might help them to really bring this back.
Yeah, NAOS may, again, it's like they get a second wind. They lose a bunch of rounds to get a second win, and this could be exactly what we're seeing now. Full buy does come out from Fancy. A few other players having to dip below sub 1k credits, which means that there is the looming threat of an eco if they end up losing this without getting too many kills or without a plant or vice versa. For now, Viper's Pits available. Kakarot was allergic to using that Viper's Pits on our first half. We'll see if it's going to be a similar story on our second. Util starts bombarding this B site though, as Nizzy seems to be on the receiving end in front of it. But Suka also deploying the odd bit of utility as position now, acutely telegraphed to the rest of the members of NAOS, but luckily the Astra Smoke is going to buy a bit of time. Out comes that orbital strike, and the utility continues to just cascade onto Nizzy, as the bullets will be what finishes him off. Moya, a beautiful 2k from him. Blurred good for one. It gets out of there with the information of the second as well, as Yes I Can now in very significant danger of being flanked. Blurred is expected, but in a 4 versus 2, what good can Fancy do? In fact, the answer is not much. They back out of there. They save. They allow NAOS to make it 8.
8 to 10, and again, NAOS, they managed to finally, I think, put things together. They take a little bit of time, but once they figure it out, they are very quick to implement it. And they figured out that this B site is just a bit more vulnerable than its counterpart. Again, being able to constantly use utility to smoke out this back of the site, you know, I'm surprised that the KO was able to stay alive for so long, considering the amount of utility just being thrown at him. And of course, him being constantly forced to reposition himself really lets Moyer get that initiative, lets him satchel in, especially once they push the fade off that hookah angle as well. Breaking that crossfire is what really clutched NAOS that round there, and they managed to hold on to all of their ults as well. With the economy being in a little bit of a bad spot, despite the 2 guns they saved, it is going to be a timeout called, I believe, from Fancy, who look to prevent NAOS from really getting into their gear.
Really do. And now you call this timeout from Fancy. I actually quite like the use of the timeout here. You still have decent weapons. You still have a chance to potentially put the brakes on the momentum of NAOS, and you're just using this as more of a tempo setter. What we've seen Fancy usually do off the back of these timeouts is it's been either a stack or it's been something aggressive. Now, with Sheriffs coming out, I wouldn't be surprised if it's a stack. It's their full buy after this, though, which I think this timeout is really sort of setting up.
Yeah, I mean, but the thing is, they do still have those 2 rifles, and of course, as long as those hero weapons, or in this case, saved weapons, can make things work, Fancy, they're not entirely out of the round. And I think the key focus for them on this one will be to do, number 1, as economic damage as possible, but more importantly, number 2, just bait out these ultimates that NAOS they still have in their arsenal here. I think that Showstopper as well from Killers might be something that's invested, even though it's an eco round. In fact, I think Fancy, they're going to be able to force up a particular buy. We might see Killers getting a little bit aggressive right off the bat, trying to get some bang for his buck, literally, so as to speak, by popping that Showstopper. But it seems like NAOS are aware of that possibility, because look at where all of them are playing, quite far away from that short angle. They don't want to risk really being taken down. Of course, Blurred is going to be investing that tour de force as well to try and watch any kind of push coming in from B long. That's just going to be the lurk though, because the action, it does seem like it's going to be gearing up towards this A side.
It really is now, and as the concealment start coming out, it's a very aggressive set of stars from the Astra, and for Yes I Can, he's done a great job delaying. Look how passive NAOS are being right now, not even really showing any presence in that sort of L block divided area. They're instead just waiting to see if Fancy are going to aggress off the back of these Astra stars, but Yes I Can still has kind of 2 or 3 ready to be deployed. This huge delay from the Astra is perfect, and with Killers sort of supporting him from the high ground, running into this Astra may be suicide.
Yeah, again though, just the threat of that Showstopper and all this utility from Yes I Can is buying quite a lot of time. It is in fact going to force NAOS to really reassess their options and go in for the showers area instead. However, PCO is playing an extremely close angle. The smoke does come through slow, does the counter push, and off the back of that Showstopper yet again, it's going to be another Rosa ult, another day, another Rosa ult. Very, very casual plays, but the trade is quick as it's going to come back down to a 4v4. Again, that Showstopper, again, is still going to be active for Killers here. Managed to get a pick with just the rifle, and now with these 3 players maneuvering onto side, that is also going to be the Vipers being taken down right now for Fancy. For NAOS, making things very difficult. With 10 seconds left, the spike has to go down, and so far it's been a struggle for NAOS to really get it down. But now that they have, Blurred is gonna have to go huge here. He's the only player with HP really. Unfortunately, though, does go down. It's going to come down to a 1v1. Both players so incredibly low, just one bullet away from their respective demises. VCO taps the spike. However, G is not going to be faked at all. He's just going to be assuming that it's not going to be the stick coming through. And VCO, he doesn't know. The poor man doesn't know where
So
to look.
brave.
Where do you look? Is it short? Is it U-Hole? Where is this last player? And now G makes a wraparound. However, VCO finds the timing and gets the pick, just like that fancy find 11 in the round that would have sounded the death knell if they to their economy if they hadn't quite converted it. But converted they do. And VCO, again, I talked about how he's been quiet for the last 2 maps, but it seems like he's finally found what he needed to really pop off.
It took a while, sure. It was laboured for a moment, but Fancy, they seem to have tried to restore order. Instantly met with the NAOS timeout, and I think for NAOS, I think the main thing they need to highlight now is in these clutch scenarios, Fancy are usually fairly passive. As we saw there, it took them without tapping. He really was trying to hunt for the kill. Previous rounds as well, going as the afterplant, when they don't have a flanker, they're not opposed to saving. I think that Fancy are being fairly reserved on their defense. They're trying to fake some aggression quite a lot, but usually they're quite reserved. I think for NAOS, the counter to this is to do something quick. I think after this timeout, I would love to see how they utilize this sort of raise to go fairly aggressive. So maybe fairly quick. I think quick lamps control could definitely work, particularly when your opponents are sort of playing towards car. There's room for exploitation here, I think.
There is, and you know, 2 ults that we didn't really see being used last round. Kakarot's Viper Spit, you know, that might have, if he had managed to get it down along with the rest of the team and stayed alive, more importantly, to get it down in the first place, that might have been something to watch out for. You know, but talking about aggressive raises, I think that we might be seeing the raise from the side of Fancy United. Mr. Killers himself going serial killer yet again through this hookah position because he seems geared up for the push, if I'm not wrong, and that might be what they need to take the kill if there are any players from the side of Fancy. Sorry, NAOS will be playing there. That's not going to be the case though, and it does seem like Fancy tries to go in. That causes the pull as well will again stop this showstopper from finding any real value as they go forward. And oh, he does spot out Blur, but by that time it is going to be the showstopper that's run out. Yes, I can though, aggressing, able to find one. VCO as well, just like that though. It's gonna all come down to just NDG, who is still holding strong, who will be able to get the spike down as his flank comes, and he knows the position of the raise that is going to be that particular player on the flank, and now he has to somehow clutch this out. I don't know if he knows any lineups here, Kremer, because if he does, that might be 8 crucial seconds that are brought that is going to be bought for the defuse.
He may just have to just straight up left click it on a shoulder peek, which has certainly worked for. It's worked for Brims before, and I think that Fancy are slowly extrapolating that he could be in showers here. Out comes the swing. It's lightning fast by Killers, and with that, Fancy, they make it 12. Map and series point now. If I'm on NAOS, I'm starting to worry a little bit, especially when you take into account the state of their economy. It's not in a healthy position at all.
I mean, worried is an understatement. I would be straight on panicking. I guess that's why I'm not a pro player, just a caster. But, you know, nevertheless, for NAOS, it's not entirely bleak. They are only 1 away from that orbital strike. They also do have, again, Kakarot. I'm actually wondering at this point if we're ever going to be seeing that Viper Spit coming in from Kakarot. Because so far, he's had it once on the attacking half, once on the defense, and neither time has he actually used it. I feel like the man forgets that he's playing Viper on this particular map. But nevertheless, jokes apart, they also do have that Nightfall coming in from G. So a lot of pivotal ults for NAOS to really work with, and that might be what they need to convert this round. It is going to be the other Viper Spit though to shut down Showers action invested in by Fancy United, though that is not going to be where the execute is coming. Instead, he is where things are stacked at the Nightfall being invested just to take long and hookah control. That's going to be a major worry, major concern that that Fancy no longer have to worry about. They're going to be aggressing despite that fragment being committed, and Moyer finds the timing, able to find that player to Atuka. Finally, that Viper Spit sees it being used, but it's all just a fake as they take the TP and run over towards that A side where they're going to be met by Ficio at his own.
I quite like using teleport as well behind the Cold Speed Divide. It means it's not quite going to be heard if Ficio wasn't there. Then right now, Fancy know it's a rotation. Luckily they do, but Moya is currently running rampant in the back line. Is spotted by Killer, and right now Fancy know it's a hit away. It's just Killer can't justify rotating yet. He spots out. He spots out Moya, but it doesn't matter. Xerxia now leaves his Viper's Pit, walks to his doom. Moya, what a round, Zach, as he brings up 4, and he shows Fancy that actually there's still plenty of life left in this NAOS. As NDG has an orbital strike ready to be wielded. Moya, of course, after the heroics there, 2 away from a showstopper. This is up against Sukia, who is 1 away from his Nightfall. Well, talking of up against, Fancy, look at their economy. It's not looking pretty.
Yeah, just one hero rifle available for killers right now. And now, as you know, that talking about that particular round, Moyer, he stepped up when his team really desperately needed him the most. The fact that he was just able to keep finding those kills, 3 of them, well, I believe 2 of them where he was on like 30 HP or something. That's just phenomenal. NAOS right now, though, they still have to be careful because we've seen how dangerous these eco rounds can be. That's spot out the shoulder of one player, G, trying to isolate these fights again, but knows that usually Fancy like to play in a stack that Fade is going to give him the information that he really needs, and thankfully he has some backup coming in with the help of his sniper buddy here, who is looking to try and get these picks. The orbital strike as well being invested, but the flank coming in, nobody expected it, and it's just going to be the rifles picked up as well. Suddenly things look so bad for NAOS here. 3 players left on them. All of this was just really a front for them to get the spike down towards the backside, but now all they have to really work with is just orbital strike that they already invested. So this retake right now, they're gonna have to somehow pummel through and hold on despite not having the numbers advantage.
This could be really worrying now as Fancy, they get, yes, another kill. Yes, I can chimes in. Moya needs another godlike performance accompanied with Blurred. It could be just that. Moya now needs another 4K if he wants to keep NAOS alive. Paint shells deployed. They're not going to land just yet. With it planted for Moya, this should be a perfect position for him. As he taps it once, swings out. Moya, the last back usage is perfect. Swings out, gets the 4K. Back-to-back 4Ks. And with that, NAOS stay alive. They are grasping to this map by the tips of their fingernails. And as they chip and as they crack and as they scrape, they're bringing back 1 round at a time. 2 away from overtime. Up against what now must be one exceedingly upset Fancy. 3 ults readily available for them. The full buy, but behind that full buy, there is nothing in the bank. It's a make or break for Fancy now.
Yeah, they really do want to let NAOS take this to overtime, because at that point they know that they've squandered the lead here, and let them really come back, and you don't want to let that momentum really slip out of your hands. And like you mentioned, Kramer, the economy is really in the dumpster, but considering what they were able to do last round with 0 ultimates and basically no economy off the back of just 1 good flank coming in, we might, if it is going to revitalize them even if they lost that particular round. At this point, I think their mentality would be something like, as long as we can shut down Moyer, guys, we got this round. Please stop dying to him. But yeah, jokes apart, yet again, it does seem like NAOS, they have their sights set on this B side. They've done it twice. 3rd time is going to yet again be the charm, and Moyer is going to be leading the charge here. Nightfall, though, as well as an outcome, and both are going to be invested right now to completely put a halt to this push. All the utility in the world being thrown right now at these players from NAOS, all stacked up towards long, and so far, nobody's even made it into sight. They're all just going to be lying in wait here.
Rather sort of sent on the run here. No one's going to be spotted with them, though. 35 seconds left now, and for Fancy, they haven't pulled any rotations. Every member is still readily available on the safe side. Should there be a teleport dive from NAOS? 25 seconds, they need to push now. Out comes the execution. Set piece out. Flash will follow. Suka dives up. It's perfect. Good for 1. Instantly traded, though. Nizzy's also in the mix, though. Blurred. He's not had many kills this game, but it's the impact of them that matters now. Showstopper from behind. There goes Blurred. They're running out of players. They're finished off. It's going to be 13 for Fancy. 13-10. They take the 3rd and final map of this series, shutting down NAOS and progressing through to the group stage.
Well, I am glad to say that my prediction was right. And Kramer, you traitor, you backed out on Fancy.
I have a fickle heart.
But it's okay. I think that NAOS, they definitely do deserve some credit for how they played. Losing that first map in such a devastating manner, bringing it back on Ascent and making Bind so close. And of course, Moyer in particular, he deserves a gold star if anyone else did. 2 consecutive 4Ks. He just wasn't able to drag the home team through to the final stretch, unfortunately. And of course, it just goes to show that you never know how these rounds are going to go. But yeah, off the back of this win, Fancy are going to be moving on to the group stage, where they are going to go up against the likes of franchise players, Xerxia, as well as Bleed. But as for NAOS, unfortunately, after that stellar performance, we are going to have to say goodbye to them.
Fortunately, we will have to now. Actually, now sort of came on my radar a little bit in some smaller tournaments. They've sort of done quite well. But I wasn't expecting the growth they made from the kind of couple of months ago to now. They put in a lot of work and they've been accredited to that. An absolutely incredible performance from them and absolutely nothing to be ashamed about there. Remember, Fancy, they were an LCQ team. They were there representing top 20 in Asia. So the fact that you're able to go 3 maps down to the 3 remaining rounds against Fancy is nothing to turn your nose up at. Really, really strong performance from NAOS. Unfortunately, it just was not enough. Fancy, our Vietnamese veterans, will live to fight another day. Let's take a little look at the highlights, though, because let's be honest, Bind, it was a belter.
Yeah, it was the only map that actually got close in the series, believe it or not. Though these teams are playing so competitively, and right off the bat, it is going to be Fancy, who have in fact managed to win 4 out of the 6 pistols in this entire series. A good sign for them, and really, I think that if Naos had been even able to win even one of these particular pistols, it might have been what they really needed to try and close things out on this map. Because again, the round deficit on this attacking half for them was just too much for them to really deal with. It just felt like they were struggling so much after being down. And sure, Moyer did manage to pull out some heroics and get 2 rounds for them, but he can't do that every single round. It seems unreasonable to expect it of anybody.
You're absolutely right. And I think for Moya, he had a pretty good series. It wasn't just a good performance on Bind. So, yeah, credit where credit's due to him. Interestingly enough, I want to talk about Kakarot and his use of the Viper's Pits. Sorry, I'll correct myself. The use of the Viper's Pits. Only one for the entire map. Feels like they were sort of waiting for the perfect moment, and in waiting for the perfect moment, in good moments, they were passing it up because they wanted the perfect one. And I think that really came back to biting out a little bit on their defense.
I genuinely feel like I don't remember the exact round, but I think 'cause it was around when the score was 3-2 or something, and Kakura was alone on that B side. He had a trademark for hookah. He
Yeah.
was holding long with just his gun, with 30 seconds left, with him knowing that the executor was mostly going to come towards his B side. If he had popped that ult right then, it might have been what they needed to convert the round. Because after that was when their economy went into shambles, and Fancy were able to find 2 more rounds after that. So that could have been the make or break moment for the game. Honestly, it could have been decided so early on into this particular map. But hey, we can keep coming up with the analysis. But at the end of the day, it just goes to show that it seemed like overall Fancy just were the stronger team of this particular map. In particular, Killers was a killer himself, a serial killer to boot, getting all of those consistent multi-frags. And of course, another player who we've never really seen much in action, who's been like that quiet danger, was PCO. Multiple rounds, being able to back up his teammates with that Viper Snakebite, being able to just hang around on the sidelines, catch players on the rotate, and just be a menace in general. A rat, a really,
Yeah.
really annoying rat for Naos. Yeah, he deserves some credit for that.
You're absolutely right. And actually, you look at how Moya and Killers were matched up here, pretty much even. Oh, it was dead set even. The ACS sort of separated by only about 20. The ADR only by 2. One, if you're really being technical. They were really evenly matched. And for Moya, a lot of that prowess came in those final couple of rounds. He got better the longer this went on for, whereas Killers was fairly consistent throughout. And as you're mentioning, of course, Physio, yes, he doesn't have many kills, but I want to highlight the assists
10.
on Fancy. 10 on Yes I Can, 10 on Physio, 14 on Suka. They were setting each other up for success beautifully.
Yeah, it's a repeat from what we saw on Breeze, like how I believe in that map it was killers on that KO. So again, I like how dynamic this team is with their role swaps. You see a man playing Phoenix for 2 maps, then he switches over to Astra, still manages to perform incredibly well. Again, Nizzy on Jet for 2 maps, switches over to the KO killers on that initiator role, goes to the duelist. Everybody still pops off. End of the day, it's a great job. And again, like you mentioned, all of these 3 players, they might be on top of the scoreboard, but they are completely enabled by their 2 other players. Wotsuka and Fishio really do set them up. I think as for the side of Naos, though, both Moyer and Blurred, Moyer in particular over these last 2 maps has been phenomenal, but Blurred just looked slightly less than what we're used to seeing from him on that chamber on this particular map with that ACS of 107.
Yeah.
That I think that's the lowest I've seen him get yet in the history of his time on Naos. But just a few mistakes coming in from them on this particular map. Blurred not really being able to find much value with that operator. A couple of misplays. They let the whole slip on defense, and off the back of that, them despite that, they managed to bring it back. But I think that seeing the comp they were running, they should have had a little bit more successful of a defensive half, and they just weren't able to really pull it together until the end. And by then, it was just a bit too late.
You're absolutely right. And yes, we're being a little bit harsh on NAOS, a little bit harsh on Blood. They did have some rough performances, but Fancy, well, one of the big problems they had throughout that series was they are really struggling to get efficiency out of their ults. In the final round, yes, Killer was finally able to land a showstopper, but his success rate with that ult has been terrible. It really has been rough. Fancy, luckily for them, their mining util usage, like their haunts, their gravity wells, their fragments from the KO, absolutely perfect. It's just their ults they're really struggling with.
Yeah, they were able to hit the shots, but the ultimate management from NAOS was less than ideal. Especially, G as well. We saw him really use it to perfection on the previous two maps, but this time around, a lot of eco rounds, you saw him committing that Nightfall just for some information of all things, and not really finding much value, especially in that last round. The fact that they used the Nightfall to get control of Long and Hookah as opposed to just walking in as they normally do, being able to trade each other. I think that was a major moment, a major waste, I think, of that particular ult. But yeah, the funny thing about this particular series was, I believe, that showstoppers just going wide for both of these race players. I mean, they did do some damage, but at the end of the day, I think that Moyer, despite being the MVP for this particular map, just didn't have his team behind him. And now it's like you mentioned in the onset of the series, Kremer, they win as a team or they lose as a team. And today it just doesn't seem like the same NAOS that we're used to seeing, especially on Bind.
Yep. Yep, you're absolutely right. And it is Fancy who will be joining the ranks of Bleed and Xerxia. Two names that I think they're fairly used to appearing next to. So it'll be interesting to see how they're going to fare in the group stage. Of course, they'll be joining the likes of Losty and Nako, who were able to go through the SA bracket. But from Fancy, let's see who got MVP for this entire series. Killers, no surprises there.
I feel like, Fancy, that you mentioned that they've been an LCQ team, but one thing that they've really struggled with is having somebody to pump up those numbers, because everybody else has rookie numbers. But yeah, bad jokes apart, I think that they've really struggled with having that star duelist to take those duels. Like, Paper Rex, they have Forsaken, Bleed, they have Darion, but for Fancy, there just wasn't anybody to step it up right now. But now that they've picked up Killers, suddenly the picture is falling into place. And despite him on this flex role, swapping between the initiator and the duelist, the one thing that is always consistent is how much he's able to just frag out with the help of his team. And I think that, usually when Fancy, they go up against the teams that you've mentioned, especially these APAC teams from the SDA region, they don't really have a stellar record. But with Killers coming into the picture, we might be seeing a change of fortunes.
Very well could be. Very well could be. However, that is all for this series. But, that's not all for today. There are some other games to watch out for. I believe, now, I'm going to correct myself in case I get this wrong, and then everyone's going to get angry at me. But I believe we have Revenant Esports versus August 5 up next, so you guys can look forward to that. Do you have any closing thoughts for this series, Zach?
I think that it was just a really close series. It could have genuinely gone either way. Just towards the end, just towards the last map in particular, NAOS, they kind of did mess up on that ult management, like you mentioned. But also, it's just not the same team play that we're used to seeing. But I think that NAOS, they definitely have improved a lot, and we are going to be seeing some more action coming in from them, hopefully in other off-season tournaments. But that might be saying just a little bit too much, Kremer. But yeah, I'm really happy that we got to do this particular series together. I think we did credit to these two teams as well as ourselves as casters. But I think that's gonna be it from both of us for today. Before we sign off though, one more time, here's our sponsors: LG Ultragear being our title sponsor, powered by Amazon Gaming, GPU partner Zotac Gaming, gaming partner Intel, memory and storage partner Crucial, laptop partner Asus, and finally but not the least, broadcast partner is going to be Loco. I'm Zach, and with me here is Kremer, who you all very well know, and we will be leaving you just for now though, because don't go away, you do have another match coming up.
Welcome to the world, no heroes and villains. Welcome to the war, we've only begun. So pick up your weapon and face it. There's blood on the ground, go and take it. You get one shot to make it out alive. So are you ready? yourself and rise, rise. Make them remember you. Push through heaven. Rise, rise. They will remember you. Welcome to the climb up. Reach for the summit. Visions brave, the one falls, steadily the end. So higher and higher you chase it. It's deep in your blood, go and take it. This is your moment. Take to the skies, go. Prove yourself and rise, rise. Make them remember you. Push through heaven. Rise, rise. They will remember you. It is you fight among the dead, beneath the dirt. Or do you know yet? Or do you want it? And when the giants call to ask you what you're worth, or do you know yet? We don't die. Prove yourself and rise, rise. Make them remember you. Push through heaven. Rise, rise. They will remember you. Prove yourself and rise, rise. Pick up your weapon and face it. We at the top again, now what? Below the crown, but count us higher than a mountain. And we be up here for the long run, strap in for a long one. We got everybody on one. Now you coming at the king, so you better not miss. And we only get stronger with everything I carry up on my back. You should paint it up with a target. Why would you dare me to do it again? Come get your spoiler, but we're taking over. We're taking over. Hey, look at you coming on, name you ought to know by now that we're taking over. We're taking over. Hey, maybe you wonder what your future's gonna be, but I got it all locked up. Take a lap now, don't be mad now. Run it back, run it back. I got bodies lining up, think you're dreaming of greatness. Send you back home, let you wake up. Why would you dare me to do it again? Come get your spoiler, but we're taking over. We're taking over. Hey, look at you coming on, name you ought to know by now that we're taking over. We're taking over. 除了是傻子还有其他吗？我左右键盘噼啪着，时间滴答着，还不够。你的固执让我来守候，哪怕太迟也不想以后。就在这时放肆的打斗。I got the heart of a lion, I know the harder you climb, the harder you fall. I'm at the top of the mountain, too many bodies to count. I've been through it all. I had to weather the storm to get to the level I'm on. That's how the legend was born. All of my enemies already dead and bored. I'm ready for war. They know I'm ready for war. I told them we're taking over.
Disappear, I'm your eraser. Ain't the cut just like a razor. Murder business, world my blazer. I got all the boys on me. I got all the lines on ring. Knocking dead, turning heads. I got all the eyes on me. Pretty face, caught up to the rock. 유행 선두자. 원하지만 못하잖아. 애가 타잖아. You like whoa, 달리 you도 go. 난 알지, I know. 준비해, cause I like the ball. 멈추지 않아. 만일래 그게 like a bag. 그거 말고 bye. 믿어봐, 그만큼 크게. 고 high 100% 덤비지 못해 죽여주잖아 나는 boss 간지위도 sauce 원하면 줄게 I'm doing damage when that's how I planned it I do what I want when I say 모든 날 따라해 난 끝내주잖아 To live on the edge of insane Coming at you like real, real wild Here to light it up, set the world on fire Gonna break rules and hearts in twos Cause that's what the baddest do I never going back, nah, nah, that Diamonds on drip cause I came to make a splash Gonna break rules and hearts in twos Cause that's what the baddest do It's crazy Sorry for the bad news, sorry I'm so bad Only took a minute for me to get what you had Sorry for the bad news, know it makes you sad There for a minute, baby, you should pack your bags Without a look, should be breaking the law If I don't got it, I take what I want My circle small like a round of applause You know that I love the sound of applause You know I mean everything that I say When you see me coming, get out of the way Back in the sleigh, back and I'm better and ready to stay I'm doing damage when just how I planned it I do what I want when I say 모든 날 따라해 난 끝내주잖아 To live on the edge of insane It's crazy Sorry not sorry for being the best 언제든지 내가 좀 mad Look at the gold all on my chest Look at the gold call it a flex As a child, you would wait and watch from far away. But you always knew that you'd be the one that would while they all play. And you'd lay awake at night and scheme of all the things that you would change, but it was just a dream. Here we are, don't turn away now. We are the warriors that build this
यस यार गेम क्या सुपर स्मूथ चल रहा है.
Asus gaming laptop, वो भी amazing deal के साथ. And I can pay आराम से with a 12-month no cost EMI. Crazy!
कहाँ से लिया?
Bro, JBL earbuds at 45% off. उसके ऊपर free Kindle and Audible subscriptions. Can you believe it? अब ये देख. शांति.
कहाँ से लिया?
Sorry.
Hey, you! I'm tracking my run on this new smartwatch I got. Noise का 70% off.
ओह,
मैंने सोचा ऐसी डील पे मैं भी अपनी फिटनेस बढ़ा लूं. Seamless Bluetooth calling. Hey, I'm running towards you. Yeah. ये देख, I just got this Intel Evo laptop in exchange for my old one. 20,000 बच गए. बस 99 rupees में extended warranty. Plus 20% off भी मिल गया. Pretty sweet deal, right?
Totally feel you, bro. This iPad was always on my wish list. Got the latest one at a great deal and saved $8,000 in exchange for my old phone.
Hey, what's up?
सबको इतनी बढ़िया डील्स मिल रही हैं. ये सब कहाँ से लिया?
Amazon से लिया.
Amazon Great Indian Festival से.
Amazon Great Indian Festival पर मिलेंगे इलेक्ट्रॉनिक्स पर जबरदस्त डील्स, नो कॉस्ट EMI, एक्सचेंज ऑफर और सेम डे डिलीवरी.
अब इंडिया बोलेगा Amazon से लिया.
DA? Should we show them how we do it every day? Let's get it. Kali that girl, Kali go girl, Kali don't stop, Kali don't skirt, Kali got a job, Kali got a word. 뜨거워 언제나 don't get burned. 넘쳐 흘러 물든 a rough.